6 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center. Sometimes pretty crazy. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole morning of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab your coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Lots to cover on the show today. Pete Peterson from Pepperdine University is going to be joining us. California implemented a minimum wage law. How's it working out there? Some trade groups are saying it's resulted in the cut of over 10,000 jobs since they passed the $20 minimum wage law. So considering that Colorado just pretty much does whatever California does these days, and that we're the little brother to Gavin Newsom, we'll dive into how that's working out there. And Pete Peterson from Pepperdine University provides some analysis for us. We'll also dive into this Alito flag controversy, or not flag controversy, the comments he made on a secret recording. Someone on the left kind of pulled a Veritas and jumped on Samuel Alito secretly recording him and provided some comments. And even the ladies from The View had some thoughts about that. So is Samuel Alito a Christian nationalist secretly hiding out on the U.S. Supreme Court trying to turn this country into a theocracy? We'll get into that and more. And then we're going to be covering the Hunter Biden conviction. So all the news, all the details. And someone vandalized that King Charles III portrait, Billy. I don't know if you saw that. It's actually kind of clever.
How could you tell? It looks like crap anyway, so who knows?
It was actually kind of a clever little...
It was an animal protesting. They had a little word bubble there. That was kind of neat. Yeah. One of the more clever ones that I've seen. They didn't just throw soup or do something stupid like that. They were clever. I'm like, okay. It's still
turned
stupid,
them into Wallace and Gromit.
Yes, they did, which is great. It's wonderful. And I love that. It's like, cheese Gromit. I'm a big Wallace and Gromit fan. Love their stuff. Have you seen them a lot? The Wallace and
Not
Gromit?
a lot,
really?
but okay. I know of them.
They're really it's very clever but dry English humor.
Yes.
And if you understand the English humor, it's really funny.
I like English humor, man. The old Monty Python stuff. The Ministry of Silly Walks.
Oh yeah, Monty Python's fantastic. Monty Python is one of my favorites. That is kind of a rite of passage in the Thorpe household to get exposed for the first couple of times.
To the Life of Brian.
Yeah, well, Life of Brian. More than that, it's Holy Grail. It's also understanding some of the classic sketches. I mean, if you can't understand the brilliance inside of the Dead Parrot sketch, come on, come on. I got a question for you. Yeah.
So I'm going to play some audio for you guys just after the news. It came upon us this morning, because yesterday evening, South Metro Fire Rescue spent 3 hours digging through the walls of a house to try to rescue a little 5-pound Pekingese puppy named, where do you find his name here?
Should be named Lucky now.
Archie Bean.
Oh, nice.
Archie Bean. This is amazing. I retweeted this on my X account, but you're not going to want to miss this story. 3 hours. And a lot of hard work to get this little pup out of the wall. All right, let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 61 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the low 90s today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, US 285 remains closed this morning, Tuesday, on 285 near Conifer during the afternoon rush hour. A semi flipped over and dumped a load of large, heavy pipes and pieces of metal. Some of the pipes landed on nearby cars, killing a person inside one of the vehicles. Witnesses reported seeing the semi speeding down the interstate and passing other vehicles shortly before the crash. Popular YouTuber Benny Potter died in a crash near Fort Collins over the weekend on I-25. Potter's SUV veered off the interstate, went across a frontage road, and rolled several times. Potter was known for running the YouTube channel Comic Storian, which has more than 3 million subscribers. The crash is under investigation. A grass fire burned 10 acres at Bar Lake State Park in Brighton on Tuesday. The fire was reported near East 128th Avenue and Piccadilly Road, and authorities say it started around 2:30 in the afternoon. The Bar Lake Nature Center was closed while firefighters battled the flames. It was contained shortly before 5 o'clock. Hamas is responding to a U.S.-backed ceasefire proposal in Gaza. The terrorists submitted a response Tuesday asking for reassurance about an end to the war with Israel as they continued to bombard Israel last night. President Biden's son, Hunter, convicted Tuesday, of course, on all 3 counts in his federal firearms trial in Delaware. His father, who's still in office, talking gun control last night.
Go, give me a break. No, I mean it, seriously. And by the way, if they want to think to take on government, if we get out of line, which they're talking again about, well, guess what? They need F-15s. They don't need a rifle.
He uses that one all the time. He dropped about 3 or 4 lies in that one. We'll have them later in the morning. ICE agents are arresting 8 illegal immigrants in the U.S. who have suspected ties to ISIS. According to CBS, U.S. officials said the arrest took place in New York, Philadelphia, and the Los Angeles areas. They arrived in the U.S. after crossing the southern border. No way. How did they get through? Former President Trump's chief political analyst, Steve Bannon, convicted on 2 counts of contempt, defied a congressional subpoena from the January 6th committee. He did what Eric Holder did years ago. But see, the problem is Bannon is a Republican and affiliated with former President Trump. So Bannon is going to prison next month.
In my 20s, I served my country on a Navy destroyer. And in my 70s, I'll serve my country in a federal prison. It doesn't make any difference. It won't change my life one whit. I don't have a big social agenda. I'm dedicated to this work of saving my country. And if I have to be a political prisoner, I'll be a political prisoner. This is a misdemeanor. When we were in the federal courthouse, the guy that ran the federal courthouse said he told one of my guys he had never remembered a misdemeanor ever being prosecuted.
Bannon on with Tucker Carlson last night. Speaking of the Fedsurrection, 3 days after the video came out of Nancy Pelosi taking responsibility for not including the National Guard outside the Capitol.
We have responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. You're going to ask me in the middle of the thing when they've already breached the inaugural stuff.
The inaugural stuff. Pelosi continues to try to walk it back and blames Republicans. A lot of questions remain about that day, January 6th. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills. Locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at lairfireplacepatio.com. Rockies over the Twins 5-4 last night. Getaway day today. NBA Finals continue tonight in Dallas. 56 in Brighton, 57 in Glendale, and 61 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. It's hump day. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. Comfortably warm in the 80s today. Sunny to partly sunny. There won't be a lot of them, but there'll be a few widely scattered thunderstorms this afternoon and evening. A low tonight near 60. Getting a little on the hot side. Wednesday and Thursday, making the low to mid-90s for both days. Lows tonight, low to mid-60s. Only isolated thunderstorms. A better chance for thunderstorms, not as hot, back to the 80s Friday and Saturday. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
right, saw the story this morning when I was coming in. They posted it late last night at 11:30. On Tuesday, June 11th at 5:30 p.m., Douglas County Sheriff deputies and South Metro Fire Rescue responded to an animal rescue in Douglas County. In a heartwarming rescue effort, a 12-week-old 5-pound Pekingese puppy named Archie Bean was saved after falling through an open floor vent on the 3rd floor of a townhome. Archie unintentionally slipped through the uncovered vent after jumping off a bed, leaving him stranded. Listen to the little beginning part of this.
Yes. Come get your treats, baby. Come get your treats.
The little puppy got stuck. So here's what happened. The sun was hot, and so he wanted more air. So he took off the vent, the vent off the floor, so he could get better air flow into his room. And the little puppy was jumping around in the room and went down.
Yeah.
And it ended up going 3 stories down, all the way to the basement through this venting system. And it's a great video to watch because the South Metro Fire Rescue doesn't give up. They probably, it's like a 6-minute video. It's not that long, but they probably drill like 15 holes.
Oh my goodness.
Trying to find, and they're running cameras through and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then finally they get to the right vent. They make the right cut. And then you see the little white Pekingese puppy's face pop right out.
Oh my goodness.
And then they pull him out, and the mom's so happy. And
neat. Oh, that's fantastic. I was telling you before the show, lost a cat in some walls for a while. Moved downtown. I used to live down near 13th and Downing, right near the Cricket before it went away. And in the house that we were in, left one of the storage areas open, and I had 2 cats at the time with my roommates who were putting stuff in the storage area. And then all of a sudden you're like, where's one of the cats? And then later in the day you hear meow, meow from behind the wall. And you're like, crap. And he wasn't the brightest cat to begin with. And so we left the storage area open and left water and food out there. He was gone for a week. It was a week. Yeah. And this is the really, really fun part of this. We'll close the circle for longtime listeners. Gabe Evans of Alpine Planning now lives in that home that I rented. So in the home in which he is making his lovely life, he had my cat wandering around the wall years ago.
So you're a snake. We all know you're a snake guy.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen those videos where they'll cut like a little hole into the wall and let the snake go in?
Yeah.
And then just mouse after mouse after mouse starts running out.
Yeah. We had, I had a bull snake that when I was a teenager, wonderful. It actually, over my life, my favorite snake, because she was more interactive and more personable than any other reptile I've ever had, and really had a kind of a real connection with her. The only time she got mad is when I was putting her back in her enclosure. She would much prefer to spend hours and hours out with me than to actually be in the enclosure. She was hilarious, but she would start popping the top off of the enclosure because she was big enough. I mean, she got to be almost 7 feet long, so she could pop the top off her enclosure, and then she would wander around the house for 3-4 days at a time. And at first, my mom wasn't very happy. Then she noticed the mice in the house were disappearing. And that kind of changed it. So we never told mom the snake was out. I just tell my dad, I'm like, yeah, snake's out. Like, okay, snake's out. And the snake would always show up back near the front door 3-4 days later, curled up or running straight across the door jamb, just laying right across it like she's some sort of doorstop every single time. But I have a feeling after a while, she'd, just like, let's go check out the mice. And she would disappear for a few days and she never got out of the house or anything else. But yeah, and lived in an old house. I mean, it was my house that I grew up in. Okay, this is how old it is. As a kid, we had a hole in the wall for the icebox man to make deliveries.
That is old.
Yeah,
that is
a door that goes all the way through the brick wall that is sealed on the inside so that the Iceman can make deliveries.
That's what, 20s?
Yeah. Yeah, it was late 20s. That's when the house was built. Yeah. I actually pulled in the basement. They had a gas stove. And again, you don't know why they would have one here in this weird part of the basement. But when my parents moved out, I pulled that thing out and it's now sitting in our basement right now because I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I don't know if we're going to store it or anything else. But it is an old school. It's basically a small oven that would have been done in the 20s and 30s that you attach to, kind of a gas line. And then it would had a burner, has a lower area that you can put food inside, but it would be comparable to feed 1 or 2 people. It's just a little tiny stove. Why it's in the basement of the house, I have no idea. And I had to
make sure the fire goes all the way.
Yes,
to the
exactly. Top. I'm like, I have no idea. But yeah, it was a weird old house. But yeah, the snake would get out and wander around and he'd take care of the mice.
So saw this article about Bill Burr, the comedian, who I adore.
Yeah, he's
right.
great.
First of all, I appreciate comedy because I grew up with comedians in my house. My dad was a comedian. My brother was a comedian. Second City, Groundlings, wrote for Nickelodeon. And so he's a really funny guy. The way they think about the world is just different than most people.
Absolutely.
They're super rare. They're quick. They can respond. They make people laugh. And then to get up on stage and to carry people through like a 2-hour sequence of stories that fit together in a journey to provide entertainment to people is like incredibly hard.
Oh, it is, because it's the skill of oration that you're standing there saying,
right,
pay attention to me for this long time. And not only am I going to be interesting, I'm going to be funny. That's spooky, because you can get up there with a band
and I'm neither.
And a whole bunch of stuff.
I'm neither interesting nor funny.
And TED Talks, you got PowerPoints, you got stuff, you have visual aids. Yeah, it's different. It's different in comedy. It's a solo thing it's scary but amazing at the same time.
And then this element of I'm going to say what I want, and this pushback against the PC culture. Thank God for comedians. Jerry Seinfeld talks about this, Dave Chappelle, now Bill Burr. He goes to Berkeley and says, I effing hate liberals.
Oh, he's great.
And he does it in a way that even the San Francisco Gate laughs about it. They even talk about how he seems to deal with all these cancelable topics, but he does so in a way that doesn't pick a fight with the audience or trying to win some grand crusade against cancel culture. He just jokes and he makes fun of liberals. Now, they don't have the audio app because a lot of these comedians will take your phones when you go into these shows, so you can't record them. But he essentially calls them empaths. Have you heard of this before?
Oh no, I haven't heard about that. That's interesting. So yeah, I know the theory behind empaths. Yeah, it's you can feel what other people are feeling, kind of an idea.
Yeah, but he uses it in such a negative way. So he goes, if you run into a white person who says they're an empath, run the other way. He describes empaths as the type of people who like making other people suffering about themselves. He goes, I effing hate liberals. However, he was clear his issue with liberals, specifically white liberals, was with their hypocrisy rather than their political stances. He used the example of white people putting Black Lives Matter signs in their windows, but not actually doing work to dismantle white supremacy. That's like if I told you my great-grandmother in Germany had a knock it off Nazi sign.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right about the idea of making it more about them and just doing the performative aspect of it. Just I'm wearing a pin. I've got a ribbon on, so I care. Shut up. Yeah, he's right.
And he gets into pride, too, about how pride is really just a celebration for white people, white liberals, to show off how many gay friends they have.
That's funny. That is really funny.
Nothing to do with actually advancing, LGBT rights or anything like that. So, I'm so glad these guys in this culture have pushed back on this. Jerry Seinfeld did the same thing. And like I mentioned, Dave Chappelle, to just give us space to laugh about the lunacy of it all and not take it so seriously. Same thing with conservative Christians. If you can't laugh about some of the craziness that happens on our side, you're taking it too seriously.
And I get mad about people that are coming after, especially comedians, because they're jokes. And sometimes they're supposed to make you uncomfortable. Sometimes they're supposed to make you think. Sometimes they're supposed to draw out silly conclusions about what's going on in society. That's been the purpose, the entire arc. I mean, you go back to what George Carlin did.
Yes.
Again, totally different.
100%.
But that's what he was doing. And you can go back to Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor the same way, trying to break down a number of lines and talking about what was going on inside of cities and what was going on at the time. That's kind of their point. And you can go back to some of the stuff that Eddie Murphy was doing, and he much more offensive, and he wasn't making necessarily social commentary, but he did at times push, and Chris Rock does the same. And I appreciate it because I think the comedians are there to point out the absurdity in our society on all sides, because that's how they view the world. I mean, you know some, you live with some, you're related to a lot of them. You understand they see the world through a different filter, and their voice is needed. And it really makes me mad when people sit there and say, well, this comedian shouldn't be able to say this joke or this joke. If they're saying something totally anti-Semitic or using the N-word, okay, we can talk about it. Beyond that, they're jokes. You don't have to be there. You don't have to buy the ticket. You don't have to listen. That's it. It's fine. I mean, you go on the other side. You remember one guy, out of New York, Andrew Dice Clay. Remember him?
No.
You don't remember the Dice Man?
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we got to have a talk about that, because Dice is early 90s. Comes out of New York. Hang on a second. I'm going to go to the
phone line's blowing up here.
Okay, I'm back. I put on hold. Andrew Dice Clay was somewhat of an acerbic comedian, but at the time, somewhat misogynistic.
Yeah.
He had a very women this kind of an attitude about women can't do anything right, etc. And that was kind of his whole persona on stage. And there was some blowback later on. He actually stars in the movie Ford Fairlane. Oddly enough, it just popped out of my brain for whatever reason. I have no idea why. But yeah, and he had a very short-lived career because of that as well. And had that time. But he was, if you go back and you listen to some of his stuff, some of the things he's saying is misogynistic. Yeah. Some of the stuff absolutely funny. Yeah. He was the guy that did blue nursery rhymes. If you ever caught that. That's what's kind of his thing. That's what broke him, was he would do these very, very blue nursery rhymes.
When you go and watch the comedians in cars getting coffee, it's so cool to watch geniuses discuss their craft.
Yeah.
Because they're gifted, but that's not where it ends.
Yeah.
They're professionals. So it's like, how do you carry somebody through a journey of making them laugh and provide social commentary? Here's Bill Burr in San Francisco. He goes, I hate the term tech bro. They aren't bros. They're nerds, and they're way more dangerous. He further endeared himself to the crowd by noting that only a socially inept nerd would want to replace the majority of the country's workforce with AI. Let's go to the phone. Let's go to Dwayne. Divide. How's it up on the mountain, Dwayne?
Well, you poor suckers down there enjoying 90-degree heat. It's only 59 up here, but I do have clear skies.
Oh, that's nice.
And I don't have to worry about, this oppressive heat type of thing or anything. It's the word I'm looking for. I'm just dang happy to be up here. Now, Billy, with your snakes slithering around the house all day and everything else, reminds me a lot of my ex-wife, which really kind of terrifies me to hear those words come out of you.
I bet.
And yeah. Now, Andrew Dice Clay, he still performs. He was at the Comedy Works about a year ago and came through, and not much fanfare. But Joan Rivers canceled him out on her show.
Joan Rivers, she doesn't seem like much of a cancel culture type of person.
He was doing a comedic bit about a person in a wheelchair or a walker. And he was like, with the whole Brooklyn accent about, okay, go ahead, kick his feet, move along. And boy, she turned on him like a shark on a big piece of meat. And after that, Andrew disappeared. I
had never heard of him.
That's weird thing. Isn't it interesting, Dwayne, that Jeff's never heard of him because how big he was at that time? I mean, he was huge. I want to say he may have even made an appearance on Saturday Night Live, but he burnt really bright very fast. Because of some of his stuff. And it was, he bordered on, and I wish he would have leaned into it because I think he had the talent. He bordered on being an insult comic, which I think is a very dangerous, but very, very good skill. I mean, you go to Lisa Lampanelli. Oh my goodness. But
do you watch those comedy channel roasts?
If I can, yeah, because some are better than others. But
do you see the one where they put Ann Coulter on it?
No.
Who was she roasting? They put her on as one of the roasters.
Oh, that can't be good.
And it was the most awkward. It was terrible because she was out promoting a book, and then she played it off as, I didn't really know what this was. I wasn't prepared. My agent set this up. And so it just missed, right? Yeah. Like someone of Ann Coulter's brilliance should have been able to go, okay, I'm going to be on a Comedy Central roast, and the whole thing's scripted, right? Everybody writes their jokes, and all the jokes
and
are
the comedians there also help the people that are on comedians.
Yes,
so they write the joke for them. Yeah,
so it's entertaining for everybody. They just didn't do it, so it was a huge mess. And you're like, you get a conservative. Like, I think if you put Tucker in, Tucker would take that seriously, prepare. he'd roast well. He'd take being roasted back and that kind of give and take. But it just totally fell flat with Ann Coulter.
Yeah, and to be the MC, to understand and to lead is a very special thing. To be able to be that offensive and that acerbic and understand what's going on.
It was the roast of Rob Lowe.
Oh, okay. I'll have to go back and see that. That's interesting. Why that? Rob Lowe and Ann Coulter?
I know.
That's totally. Did you hear about the roast with Tom Brady?
Yes.
His kids watched it and cried.
You can't.
No, you can't. Yeah, I know. Again, you had to explain to the kids first. Like, come on, this is just for fun. Yeah.
Please, the comedian who sat there and started off with Tom Brady was absolutely obsidian blade sharp. There was absolutely no flaw in his speaking pattern or anything else. My son and I was picking up on Andrew Dice Clay. We're seeing him on YouTube, and Sam Kinison. It's hard to remember that those guys there were filling stadiums. They were filling 20,000 seat arenas, and you couldn't get tickets because it would be done in hours.
Yeah, you remember Dane Cook?
Yep.
Did you ever hear? He lost.
Dane Cook he stole jokes left and right.
Yeah,
did he?
Absolute.
His brother-in-law took all of his money.
Well, that's fine. It should have happened to him. He stole two of my jokes.
I think I think Dane Cook. It might be him. I forgot. I think it is Dane Cook. I might be wrong but I know it was a guy that was stealing jokes and had some financial problems. The story goes that Dave Chappelle is hanging out and he wants to work on a little bit of new material and shows up to a club in New York. And they say, and he's like, hey, can I get, 5-10 minutes or something to just work something out? Can I? And they go, yeah, but you got to keep it short. It can't go too long, except because it's Dane's night. And they're like, what? And he goes, no, Dane Cook. And because he watches these things, he comes in and then he closes out the night. So everything's kind of focused on him and this and everything else. And Chappelle's like, okay, fine, whatever. Now, Chappelle could have gone, that's stupid, everything else. What does Chappelle do? Gets up on stage. They put him up right before Dane Cook. And he sits there and does his tight 10. Most people get on there and, Chappelle, you'd run 30, 40 minutes just to prove a point to Cook. No, he does a tight 10. As he's stepping off stage, he says, oh, yeah, guys, I got to go. I'm going to go hang out outside, and I'm going to smoke some cigarettes for a while. You want to come out and take some pictures and talk to me? Let's go. Place empties. Dane Cook goes on stage with less than 3 people in the building. And again, Chappelle could have been a real asshat about it, but what did he do? He did the comedian thing. He goes, okay, fine. You get your thing. You do that. Let me see if I can pull the audience. I'm going to pull the audience away from you. So smart, so intelligent.
Dwayne, I appreciate the call. Thanks so much.
Yeah, have a great day in Divide.
Again, talking about Bill Burr in San Francisco, telling liberals he hates them and he's tired of them being empaths, which is a new term I've never heard. If you ever see an empath, run the other way. They like making other people's sufferings about themselves. Is that a good, adequate description of liberals? That they kind of just embrace that. He also goes on to critique gay pride, saying it's about white liberals showcasing how many gay friends they have, as opposed to actually advancing anything for the LGBT community. Is that where we are with kind of the modern left? Give me a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710KNUS app. I want to talk to you about my friend Dan Caplis and Dan Caplis Law. I've known Dan for decades. Dan is pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. So you have a lawyer, first of all, that shares your values. Because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Not only does he share your values, he's the son of a police officer. He's a former seminarian. He's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. So not only is he a guy that shares your values, he is a titan in the courtroom. Dan Caplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm. For serious cases, Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, give him a call, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or visit dancapitalistlaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLISlaw.com. All right, Billy, I want to ask you this.
Yes.
Matt Gaetz calls the Hunter Biden conviction kind of dumb. Do you agree with him?
You know, who's the source? I mean, I could say the source is also kind of dumb.
I kind of agree with Matt. I'm like,
yeah,
all right.
Although how much is
this guy on
how
this?
much is Matt worried that they're going to charge him with some federal crimes? How much is he like? No, we should not be charging people like this. they're too important. They should not be facing any sort of charges for anything they do with anybody at all. Yeah, this has been an interesting reaction to the Hunter Biden thing.
It's been all over the place.
Yeah. Did you see Steve Miller? Is it Miller? Yeah, the guy that was in Trump's White House, the immigration guy.
No.
Yeah, he came out yesterday and said this was a sham trial, completely set up, that Joe Biden was putting his son on trial so that he could put Donald Trump in jail.
See, so here's the spectrum of responses that have been. Yeah, the Trump kind of campaign going, this was a big nothing burger. It's a distraction from the real crimes that the Biden family has created. Then you have some of those arguments that, that Joe Biden put his own son in prison so he can win a presidency.
Yep.
Then on the other side, you have, see, this proves that the DOJ is not rigged.
Yeah.
That was literally the talking point from the left. Every tweet was Donald Trump was duly. So we're going to take this to prove Donald Trump deserves to be in jail.
Yeah.
And then you get Matt Gaetz, who just kind of summarized my opinion on it, where I'm like, yeah, this is kind of dumb.
It's really, really dumb. And the really stupid thing inside of it is that Hunter didn't take a plea deal early on.
Yes.
He really, really should have. And originally, his original plea deal that they had fell apart. And we'll have to remind people of this because his lawyer tried to do some funny business. And his lawyer added stuff. And again, just the document. And it's not as if he added it in Sharpie or anything at the last minute. As the documents are going back and forth, whatever the prosecution had reviewed didn't necessarily reflect the changes that Hunter's people had made. And in the plea agreement, it wiped out all the investigations, and Hunter couldn't be charged with anything else connected to this in perpetuity. And the prosecution went, No, that's not what we talked about. We didn't talk about that because we're still looking at this.
The judge said that.
And it's the judge that brought him up because the judge is like, wait, is this because the prosecution had to represent to the judge what the deal is? It's not the defense that does that. It's the prosecution. And when the prosecution outlined it, the judge then went through the document and said, that's not exactly what it said. What about this? You didn't say that you're wiping it clean for everything. And the prosecution went, we're not. And so it seemed to be that Hunter Biden's lawyer team tried to do a little bit of funny business, that maybe they were hoping that the prosecution didn't actually review all the documents beforehand and they could slide something in, because that was not the deal they had made. And ta-da! Good job, guys. This is the result.
What do y'all think of the Hunter Biden conviction in that spectrum of reactions that Joe Biden's using this to make sure that he wins? He's willing to put his own son in prison to this thing is a distraction from the real Biden family crimes of influence peddling by foreign assets, to this is a proof that Donald Trump should be convicted, because now it's clear that the DOJ is not taking orders from the Biden administration, to Matt Gaetz going, meh, this is kind of stupid. Give me a call. Tell me where you fall in this. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. President Joe Biden's son Hunter has been found guilty of lying about his drug use when buying a gun. It's another unprecedented development in American justice and politics as legal wrangling continues to hang over this tightly fought race for the White House. Benji Hire reports.
So this here is the jury verdict form, and it reads guilty on all counts, buying and possessing a firearm whilst addicted to an illegal substance. The president responded immediately. Joe Biden says he'll accept the outcome of this case and continue to respect the judicial process as Hunter considers an appeal. This conviction, the first for the offspring of a sitting US president, is perhaps the strongest evidence yet that the system isn't rigged against Donald Trump, as he so often claims. That hasn't stopped him, though, from insisting that the Biden family is a criminal empire. This isn't the end of Hunter's legal dilemmas either. He faces another trial in September on tax charges.
A new task force has been launched to crack down on the sale and distribution of illicit e-cigarettes. The new enforcement effort by the US Justice Department and the Food and Drug Administration is trying to protect young people from illegal vaping products. Everyone from manufacturers to retailers are being targeted to stop the distribution of unauthorised tobacco products. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
Hunter Biden conviction be the exit door for Joe Biden? Does he now use this as an excuse to walk away before the convention, or is this a big nothing burger? Do you think at this point it knocks a little of the edge off of calling Donald Trump a convicted felon? Because now Donald Trump goes, well, your son's a convicted felon. Is he a bad guy?
I think it hurt. I think it, a little bit. The only difference, I think, is Hunter's not running for something. And that's always been the odd equation in this is the whole idea is, oh my gosh, the Hunter Biden laptop. I don't know. Maybe someone can show me, but I'm unfamiliar with any specific Joe Biden crimes that were on the Hunter Biden laptop. There's this assumption that if the laptop would have come out, that it would have swung the election because the president's son is a screw up. I can never come to that conclusion. I understand it's, and on the other side, the idea that now that Donald Trump's a felon, it's going to dramatically shock his base. It's not going to crack a single thing. He's not going to lose a person that is in their base. He's not going to lose a single vote. It could be more difficult for him to persuade voters because of it, but he's not going to lose them a single vote. Although I do agree, though, that it does do some damage to the idea of the weaponization of the Biden Department of Justice, because even Trump yesterday said that he would have questions about having the Department of Justice prosecute his kids. I mean, not in those exact words, but that was his idea. As a father, you don't want to pardon him. You should. Maybe you step in. And he kind of said that, maybe Joe Biden wasn't necessarily the bestest dad because he wasn't helping out his kid that way. And I understand it, but I don't know. I mean, I think it hurts the narrative a little bit, though.
Representative Elise Stefanik says Hunter Biden guilty verdict is a first step in accountability. The House GOP conference chair Elise Stefanik said Tuesday that the guilty verdict in the federal gun crime case against the president's son, Hunter Biden, is the first step in delivering accountability to the Biden crime family. Republicans aren't done yet. They've got a little taste for blood. They're going back for more. She said this, let's remember, this was Joe Biden's corrupt DOJ that tried to negotiate a sweetheart plea deal with outside immunity unrelated to this case. It was the judge who stepped in to expose that. Last year, Biden had struck a deal with the Justice Department to plead guilty to 2 misdemeanor tax counts of willful failure to pay federal income tax as part of a plea deal to avoid jail time on a felony gun charge, but the judge did not accept the plea agreement, questioning the constitutionality, specifically the diversion clause in the immunity Hunter would receive. The case went to trial and led to his conviction on all counts. Today is the first step in delivering accountability to the Biden crime family. We must and will continue as House Republicans to investigate the Biden family for the corrupt influence peddling scheme that generated over $18 million in foreign payments to the Biden crime family members. Hey, Billy.
She makes a lot of assumptions. And I always like the idea. And again, she's using the label Biden crime family with a shocking lack of crimes being listed. I mean, again, she's talking about this is the first step. The first step is Cracky the crackhead did dumb stuff and had a gun. That this is somehow the first thread that is going to unravel the entire scheme. Where's Jim Comer? Where's Jim Jordan? They've been spending months and months and months investigating, doing all the hard work. I've seen a lot of press conferences and I've seen a lot of interviews of them talking about, I haven't seen crime. Haven't seen a single thing. They've come out and said, here's the crime. Haven't been able to prove a single thing. In fact, the one person they have that was supposed to be the person that was going to give them all the information about Ukraine has been arrested for lying to the FBI for other stuff. So, okay. Again, there's nothing in there that Elise Stefanik can prove for it. So, okay.
Influence peddling?
How?
I mean, as far as
because
like Burisma and those types of things.
Here's the idea: is explain to me how that is different than the basic job of a lobbyist. And the other thing you'd have to show me is what was the end result.
Not saying that it was a crime, but does it bother you at all?
What bothers me, the whole idea of lobbyists and influence peddling bothers me a lot.
Yeah,
but them doing it, and again, I would stop lawmakers from being able to become lobbyists for 10 years after you leave. That idea is crap. So there are entire industries that are built on this. In order for it to be a crime, you would have to show me where whatever Hunter Biden was involved in changed policy in the U.S. That's where it becomes a crime.
Yeah. And that's what they got Menendez on.
Yeah.
So they could show that the Mercedes, the gold bars, the cash sewn into the suit actually resulted in policy changes.
Yeah, that he made policy changes in order to benefit the guy that was given the money. And
a
so
quid
far,
pro quo.
quid pro quo.
But
So far, we don't have any of that.
That's where I also get confused because I'm like, I've literally watched state representatives get put into office as a result of big organizations like the ACLU or Planned Parenthood, and then literally deliver a bill written by them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I'm like, that is... So I'm trying to figure out how that is not illegal, but Bob Menendez pushing a bill because he got... Is it because the money was for a personal gain?
Yeah,
but then
it's personal gain versus washing it through your campaign. That's the only
difference. But then getting elected is a personal gain.
So sure it is. And again, this is the corruption that is inherent inside of the system. And you've even been very, very good with this with some of our county commissioners that have come in, and you've asked them about the money coming in from the developers.
Right.
And how then are you beholden to them when you're in office because they wrote the big checks that got you there? Do you owe them anything in return? And even though every candidate says, no, I'm going to be independent, psychologically, you can't break that because they have given you something. And psychologically, when someone does that, you want to give them something back.
Because you'd like those checks to come in the future.
Yes, you would, especially when you keep that job. So, yeah, this is absolutely dirty. And, there's all sorts of influence peddling. It's Donald Trump there was this comment, allegedly, we haven't been able to prove anything, about him offering all sorts of deals to the oil and gas industry if they raise a bunch of money for him and put a bunch of money in his coffers. However, again, I don't care if that we can talk about differently. The weird thing is the offshoot of that afterwards, there are people inside of the oil and gas industry that are pre-writing Trump's executive orders. So they're going to hand. I know, but that's it.
They are.
So
they do that on both sides.
Oh yeah.
So that's where I'm kind of like, is it a crime?
Yeah.
How's one a crime? How's not?
Oh, I know. It's absolutely. And Planned Parenthood, I'm sure, helps them write a lot of the stuff.
They write Jenna Griswold's press releases.
Yes, they do. Absolutely. It is ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous on both sides. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
Give us a call on this Hunter Biden item. Conviction a big deal? You agree with Matt Gaetz? This is kind of dumb. And is Hunter Biden going to provide a big Second Amendment win through the appeals process? We'll get to that and more. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's do You Choose the News, Billy.
Yes, it is that time of the morning where we make questionable decisions and play everybody's favorite fake radio news game show, You Choose the News. We have scoured the interwebs for mere moments this morning to find really, really dumb stories about us humans, giving them even worse headlines to play this fake radio news game. Why? Well, because people in charge have no idea we are doing this. This is a tiny secret between you and us. Alrighty. Now remember, this is probably not sponsored by Roll 'em Out Shelves. They are a fine, reputable mother-son run company that will solve the clutter in your kitchen, bath, garage, wherever it is. They've solved problems except the problems that we create with You Choose the News. Roll 'em Out Shelves does not want to be associated in any way, shape, or form with something as ridiculous as You Choose the News because they are a fantastic company. They probably support 710K in US. See them and schedule a free in-home estimate at rollemoutshelves.com. Okay, gentlemen. Jeff Hunt, Blake Olson from the newsroom. Here are your headlines today. Headline number 1, job security. Headline number 2, self-fulfilling prophecy. Headline number 3, when art hurts your feelings. And headline number 4, a delicious poison. Your choice, sir.
Art hurts your feelings.
Yeah, what happens when art hurts your feelings? We go to a small Connecticut town who is now going to have to pay $100,000 to the family of an 8th grader. Now, the 8th grader suffered some emotional damage after a teacher showed a Kendrick Lamar video in class. Seems innocuous, but Kendrick Lamar does have a little bit of political nature to him, and it is shows some violent scenes about police. Kendrick Lamar's the song is called All Right, and basically he depicts police officers doing very not nice things. Now, this 8th grade student, his father is a police officer and claimed emotional damage because of it. Normally, we would say, hey, 8th grader, you're being a little silly, everything else. There's more. This just wasn't any normal 8th grader. This was an 8th grader that had a learning disorder and was special needs. Ooh. So not heavy special needs, but did have a learning disorder and does have some emotional issues. So
better decisions.
Yes, the teacher should have made better decisions. The teacher is absolutely wrong in this case. And the teacher has shown inappropriate videos before. So the teacher is now under some investigation as well. So not surprised. It's not one of those. It's like, you're just being a baby, but the video. No. This guy showed it to kids that probably shouldn't have seen it because of who they are, how they interpret things.
Teacher's lounge.
Exactly. And even then, or show it in your honors government, show it in the AP government, show it somewhere there. You don't show it to the kids that have special needs. All right. Blake Olson, job security, self-fulfilling prophecy, or delicious poison?
Let's go with job security, Billy.
Oh, yeah, this is perfect job security, especially if you live in the city of Pittsburgh. Despite hiring more than 100 new workers, the Pittsburgh Department of Public Works says, sorry, the water fountains aren't on yet. There's just one dude, and Jim's busy. Yes, despite they hired 100 new workers, they have a single plumber, and a plumber is responsible for opening up the water fountains. Recently, KDKA went around town and couldn't find a single water fountain working in the city of Pittsburgh because evidently the plumber works, well, just as fast as the plumber does when he comes to your house. Yeah.
Same thing with mowing here in Denver. We have illegal immigrants.
I know.
I'm just saying.
Exactly.
I'm sure one can turn a knob.
Yeah, you'd hope so. Now, Jeff, final choice here, self-fulfilling prophecy or delicious poison?
Delicious poison.
Yeah, so we're going to Denmark for this one, and there's some delicious poison there in Denmark. They are recalling South Korean company Samyang noodles, claiming that they could be poisonous. Actually, they aren't. They're just super, super, super spicy. And so they're pulling it. They're pulling them off the shelves because they're too spicy for the Danish palate. So that's it. They're done. Yeah, back to you. That's it. That's all You Choose the News. We're running out of time.
You Choose the News with Billy. All right, next. $20 minimum wage is it working in California? You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, June 12th. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center, crazy, Colorado, California, all of the above. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history. By the way, Billy, do you know it's Superman Day?
Really?
It is.
What do you mean Superman Day?
It's the day to honor Superman.
Really?
Yeah.
Why today?
Superman Day. That's a good question.
Yeah, what's about today?
I just saw it on Twitter.
We don't know. I mean, we can't figure. I mean, we have no idea when he was born on Krypton. I can't. It could be the same calendar year, etc. I have this fight that I really am not a fan of Superman.
I was gonna say, do you have a favorite Superman?
Yeah, not Superman. No, Batman. Batman
is yours. Why do you like Batman more than Superman?
Because Superman, it takes him no effort to be a superhero.
He was just born.
He's just
way.
it. Yeah, and so the idea is he's never when
he's
he rushes
Lady
in.
Gaga.
Yeah, well, when he rushes into danger, he can never get hurt. There's not. It's a different thing. I mean, imagine what you would do if you knew you could fall off the top of a building and land on the ground, and you wouldn't get hurt. Someone could shoot you with a gun, you wouldn't get hurt. You run into fire, you wouldn't get hurt. That changes your perception. You're not necessarily being a hero. Batman, normal dude, does the same stuff, but is a normal human. That's a different level of commitment.
You like rich guy playing with his toys?
No, it was more the idea that he made the personal commitment. He was the one group. He was the one person out of the group that didn't have something different about him. It didn't get see, he wasn't dumped in toxic waste. He didn't have some sort of weird gene thing come up. He was the one that was the average everyday dude and was just doing it based on his physical attributes and the gadgets that he was able to purchase. And that was always for me an inspiration of, hey, you may not be this for other people, but you can still get there. Just because you're who you are, you can still get there. So that's what it was.
Out of all the Supermans, do you have one that sticks out to you?
Wait, Superman or superheroes?
Superman.
Oh,
it's a Superman Day.
Like you mean
Christopher Reeves?
Okay, I get it. Christopher Reeves is the classic.
Dean Cain or any of those guys.
Christopher Reeves is the classic. I like the human side that Dean Cain brought to it during Clark and Lois. I thought that was a really good humanization of the trivials of Superman trying to be a human. I thought that was a good exploration of that. Henry Cavill has done a very good job. Superman. But again, the Superman tales are hard to tell. Although I do have a story about a very, very first original Superman and how it got made.
Do you?
Yeah, the only reason they were able to make the original Superman is because they signed on Marlon Brando to be his father.
Really?
That's the only reason it made it. And they got him. And if you look, he's only in the movie for like the first 5 minutes. But they were able to get him to sign, and then they took that signature to everybody else to fund it.
And
said Marlon Brando's in, and they go, okay, now here's the thing. Next time you see it, Brando was a fan of the food. And when they did his original costume measurements, he was much more svelte than when he showed up for filming. He had gained almost 35 to 40 pounds. So they can't shoot him from the back because the costume doesn't close. So if you go back and watch that first slide, all the shots of Brando are from the front because you can't shoot him from the back because they couldn't close the costume. Yeah. So that's what happened.
Google now adds like AI to your searches, which is kind of funny. Superman Day is celebrated on June 12th every year. Some ways to celebrate, according to AI.
Run around in your tights in the neighborhood. That's not in it? No.
It's not there.
Darn.
Binge watch. You could volunteer by giving blood or volunteering at a food bank or use the hashtag Superman Day. Thank you, AI, for those
kind of stupid. Doesn't help at all. No help. Anyway,
I like the idea of running around in your tights.
Yeah.
More.
Oh, I do too. In fact, I'll tell you, one of my first Halloween costumes was Superman as a little kid. And I always give my mom so much respect for this because she went around town openly embarrassing herself for her nerd young son. And I always thank her for this. And so I'm in elementary school, want to be Superman. You don't have regular Superman costumes. It's all the plastic stuff, and those are crap.
Right.
So she's trying to assemble a Superman costume. She's found a blue shirt, blue pants. We found a sewn S that she's put on the front of the shirt. But you've got the little red tights. Do you understand in the early 80s, it'd be late 70s, early 80s. It'd be late 70s. Late 70s, my mother's walking into all sorts of different clothing shops, asking the gentleman there if they have red men's underwear. They didn't. All the stuff came in white.
Yeah.
So
Did she end up dyeing it?
No, she found she found one that was, let's just say, a little too revealing. So she's like, couldn't buy those, and found some. Yeah, exactly.
Little thong.
And she eventually found one pair that did work. And I saw a picture the other day of me, dressed in my little Superman costume. But she did. She eventually found them. But she said, "Do you understand the number of stores I went into?" And she goes, "Into a T,
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, every one of them is like." Really? What do you need red underwear for, young lady? Just the entire time. Yeah, she goes, the most
that
awkward
picture
conversations.
should absolutely find its way onto the internet, Bill, and I think our audience deserves to see that.
Yeah, they should see that. They should. I'll see if I can find it. I'll have to dig it out because I was going through albums, family albums the other day. I was pulling some stuff for my brother that I'm going to send to him, some stuff out of family albums that he wanted some pictures. So he didn't say I need the whole album. I'm like, here, I'll just grab all the pictures.
Look at all those text messages blowing up. They would love to see Billy in his little Superman outfit when he was a little boy.
I'll have to see if I can find it. She even sewed the white, she found a red. She went to like the fabric store, got a big piece of red fabric and made the cape and put the yellow S on it and everything else.
Dude, that's
she
next
did
level.
Great. Oh,
that is next level.
She did. She went above and beyond. And I always remember that. Yeah. But again, still imagine that. This has got to be, it would be mid to late 70s. She's walking into these clothing stores with these very, professional men going,
"Do you have red underwear for guys? And they need it small."
I mean, it's just, that's a conversation that just would have been like, wow, okay. Yeah.
Commitment.
Exactly. That's a mother's love.
We got a great show for you. In the 8 o'clock hour, we're going to get into the California minimum wage issues. A little wrong on that timing in the last hour, but we'll get into it in the 8 o'clock hour. This hour, Samuel Alito has been secretly recorded. Rolling Stone's running with it, New York Times running with it, saying that Samuel Alito's godliness comment echoes a broader Christian movement. Is he a compromised Christian nationalist? We can get into that secret recording as well as John Roberts' secret recording, all coming up after the news. You're not going to want to miss it. Let's check in with Blake Olson's news. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning. Hey, Billy. It's Superman Day today because June is Glide Month.
Glide month?
Yeah, gliding through the air.
Oh, I get that. Oh, nice. Okay, I can see that.
I needed the rim shot.
Who was your superhero? Blake,
it fell hard. Oh,
yes,
Batman. I'd say Batman, but I could relate to your Halloween story. No, that's cool. We need the photo. We want to see the.
I'll see if I can find it. I saw it recently.
What about Spider-Man?
Not a big fan because I used to watch The Electric Company, and that was the worst Spider-Man ever.
That was awful.
Creepy, man.
Yeah, it was creepy. It was weird. And then the other thing is, if you go back and if you can find reruns of Electric Company, go back and watch them now. And what's funny is you get through it and you're watching, and you're like, they're all on cocaine. I mean, it's like, okay, it's like I've seen this now, and you see it, and you're like, they're high. Yes.
Yes, they had to have frightened my parents.
Absolutely.
I didn't understand it when I was a kid.
Either,
but, why are we watching this?
Exactly. It makes so much sense at the time.
No doubt. And by the way, Jeff, don't go listen or play, who were you talking about earlier?
Bill Burr?
Hickory Dickory Doc. You know who I'm talking about, Billy. Anyway, don't go playing that
Kendrick Lamar. Yeah.
No. Comedian,
Andrew Dice Clay.
Thank you. Do not play that in front of your children.
Yeah, you can't do it. Yeah, he did the blue nursery rhymes. That's what broke him. Was the idea. That's what made him big. Yep, those were huge.
But Jeff does need to listen to him alone.
Yeah, alone. Yes, alone in a closet.
Yes, no question. All right.
I spent a lot of time there by myself.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay. 64 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the low 90s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, US 285 near Conifer remains closed this morning after a semi flipped over and dumped a load of large, heavy pipes and pieces of metal on Tuesday afternoon. Some of the pipes landed on nearby cars, killing a person inside one of the vehicles. Witnesses say the semi was speeding down the interstate shortly before the crash. Thornton police searching for a suspected arsonist. Investigators say a man set 2 fires behind businesses along East 112th Avenue on the evening of June 3rd. The suspect caught on surveillance video, and images of him have been released to the public. You can contact the Thornton Police Department. Fire crews battling a large wildfire near Twin Lakes in Lake County. The fire was reported early Tuesday afternoon, and officials say 200 acres of land have burned since then. Police living in the area were evacuated. People living in the area were evacuated. The Lake County Sheriff's Office says buildings at the Inner Lake and Historic District aren't at risk from the fire. President Biden's son Hunter convicted Tuesday on all 3 counts in his federal firearms trial in Delaware. His father talking gun control last night and then interrupted by Hamas supporters. The left eats their own.
You couldn't own a cannon. The main reason I'm here is to say, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. No.
Pause. Pause. We're going to pause it.
No, I was just going, remember Joe Biden? 4
Yes.
more years.
Yes.
Pause.
Yes. Pause.
4 more years.
You know what? I have already forgotten that. And that was only like a month ago. Sorry about that. Good one. Pause. My apologies. So it goes on, and then listen to what he said.
They care. Innocent children have been lost.
Yeah, so he takes both sides.
In an abortion clinic.
Yeah,
he supports. Innocent children have been lost.
Very nice. Absolutely. Plenty of those in the crowd, no doubt. Hamas is responding to a U.S.-backed ceasefire proposal in Gaza. The terrorists submitted a response Tuesday asking for reassurance about an end to the war in Israel.
ICE agents arrested the men over the weekend in New York, Los Angeles, and Philadelphia. Sources told NBC News on Tuesday that the 8 suspects had been on the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force radar. It turns out none of the men have criminal records. They have not yet been charged with a terror connection or a plot. Paul DeCastro, NBC News Radio, New York.
And former President Trump's chief political analyst Steve Bannon, convicted on 2 counts of contempt, defied a congressional subpoena from the January 6th committee. He did what Eric Holder did years ago, but you know what? Bannon is a Republican and affiliated with former President Trump, so he's going to the clink. We'll see what happens. He was on Tucker Carlson last night. Speaking of the Fedsurrection, Nancy Pelosi trying to walk back this video that comes out over the weekend, frantic that she didn't order the National Guard to come back to the Capitol.
In the 20s,
Wrong one.
We have responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. You're going to ask me in the middle of the thing when they've already breached the
inaugural stuff. And then she blames her political opponents.
The fact is that the president of the United States, the former president, and his toadies do not want to face the facts. They're trying to do revisionist history on January 6th.
His toadies and the facts were right there in the video that you just heard. All right, the Rockies over the Twins, 5-4 last night. Getaway day today. NBA Finals continue this evening in Dallas as the Mavericks try to come back down 2-0. 59 in Boulder, 60 in Lakewood, 64 in Denver. Going to be a beautiful, hot day on Hump Day, on Superman Day. Blake Olson, News Talk, 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. Comfortably warm in the 80s today. Sunny to partly sunny. There won't be a lot of them, but there'll be a few widely scattered thunderstorms this afternoon and evening. A low tonight near 60. Getting a little on the hot side. Wednesday and Thursday making the low to mid 90s for both days. Lows at night, low to mid 60s. Only isolated thunderstorms. A better chance for thunderstorms, not as hot. Back to the 80s Friday and Saturday. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
There's an effort out there to delegitimize the Supreme Court by attacking Samuel Alito. It's clear, it's coordinated, and it's ridiculous. The Rolling Stone tweeting this in a new secret recording. Justice Samuel Alito says he agrees that the U.S. should return to a place of godliness. And then the New York Times, Alito's godliness comment echoes a broader Christian movement. Justice Samuel Alito's secretly recorded remarks come as many conservatives have openly embraced the view that American democracy must be grounded in a Christian worldview. So what did he say that was so controversial? Here's Samuel Alito in a secret recording, but not so secret because this took place at a public event.
As a Catholic and as someone who really cherishes my faith, I don't know that we can negotiate with the left in the way that needs to happen for the polarization to end. I think that it's a matter of winning.
I think you're probably right. One side or the other is going to win. There can be a way of working, a way of living together peacefully, but it's difficult, because there are differences on fundamental things that really can't be compromised.
I think that the solution really is winning the moral argument. People in this country who believe in God have got to keep fighting for that, to return our country to a place of godliness.
Oh, I agree with you.
This woman went in and acted as if she was Catholic. She's not. She's actually kind of a liberal activist, documentary filmmaker. But this was an event. It was a fundraiser for the courts. And Chief Justice Roberts also interacting. Samuel Alito's wife is there. And the left is trying to make the argument that essentially Samuel Alito is an activist Christian nationalist. And then they recorded his wife as well. Here's the audio.
You know what I want? I want a Sacred Heart of Jesus flag because I have to look across the lagoon at the Pride flag for the next month.
Exactly.
And he's like, oh, please don't put up a flag. I said, I won't do it because I'm deferring to you. But when you are free of this nonsense, I'm putting it up and I'm going to send them a message every day. Maybe every week I'll be changing the flags. There'll be all kinds. I made a flag in my head. This is how I satisfy myself. I made a flag. It's white and it's yellow and orange flames around it. And in the middle is the word vergogna. Vergogna in Italian means shame.
Makes me like Samuel Alito's wife even more. Here are the comments from the ladies on The View over this controversy.
In my lifetime as an attorney, I never knew the religion of the Supreme Court justices. I never knew the political affiliations of the Supreme Court justices. They are supposed to be the highest court in the land, really in the world, that the world looks to the Supreme Court. And this kind of thing compromises the Supreme Court. And Justice Sotomayor said it so well. How does the Supreme Court recover from the stench coming from the court?
So conservatives,
giant pile of crap. That is a steaming giant pile of crap coming out of her mouth. How does she actually still have a job and foist that much BS out in front of us in public? That is crap. We've always known political affiliations of the justices because we refer to them as liberal and conservative. We talk about the balance of the court.
Yep.
Come on. I understand the religious side of it. And again, that for years and years and years, they just had to say, I'm a good Christian, and you get the pass. That's all it was. That's all. Because if you said it was anything else, you're not even getting anywhere close to the Supreme Court.
We had no Muslim Supreme Court justices.
And so we don't. And so the idea is we didn't know their religion. No, yes, we did. Yes, we did. That is so stupid.
We've had Jewish Supreme Court justices, right?
But they were Jewish. I don't know if they ever not, but I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg might have been. But again, don't care. Didn't matter, and don't care about the religious affiliation of the justices right now as well. Political affiliation, that's more concerning because of how much they speak out about it, etc. But this isn't new. This isn't something that is untold or anything else. It is weird, however, that Justice Alito has decided can't do anything about the flags. That somehow his arms don't work to take flags up and down outside of his house. I don't understand that.
You get a little sense into the family dynamic there right at the beginning. Listen to this again.
You know what I want? I want a Sacred Heart of Jesus flag because I have to look across.
Oh.
You know what I want? I want a Sacred Heart of Jesus flag because I have to look across the lagoon at the Pride flag for the next month.
Exactly.
And he's like, oh, please don't put up a flag. I said, I won't do it.
Oh, please don't put up a flag. Yeah.
I'm tired of it. I don't want to deal with it. The New York Times is writing about it. The Washington Post is writing about your flags.
Yeah.
She kind of is a little bit of a Dave Williams-esque there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to deal with the Pride flag. I'm putting up the Sacred Heart of Jesus flag.
The thing for me, though, is that did you have to use Jesus? Because if let's say that our Lord and Savior comes back and someone's flying a Pride flag, is he going to be pissed and angry at them? I don't think that's necessarily how he's wired. So the idea is that
the flag battles.
Yeah, the idea is that she is using our Savior as fighting back. And like, no, that's not the message contained inside of the religion. You're missing some of the narrative here. There are so many other things she could have put up, but it does give me some insight into her when she is using her religion in this aggressive. Well, she's using it in an aggressive manner. She's using it in a very, very aggressive manner.
She's pressing back.
Yeah, but in a way that is not part of the heart inside of the religion, in my opinion. So I think she's misusing it and she's mischaracterizing it, and it's misguided. But it shows me where she is. And that's okay, and I appreciate that. But yeah.
So going back to the idea that there's never been a Supreme Court when we never knew where their political affiliations were. Just a little time machine back to 2016 and RBG.
I did want to ask you, specifically,
that's a little bit of a different audio. Well, and that may have been my fault. But there's a story. There's a story of RBG and Donald Trump getting in a fight where RBG 3 times says that she doesn't like Donald Trump and is opposed to him. We'll pull that audio in a second. Here's John Roberts in response to all this.
I did want to ask you,
oh no, the machine has loaded things 3 times in a row. So here, tell you what, I have got the RBG thing. Hang on a sec here.
RBG.
Boom, boom, boom. Okay, this is the story you were referring to, and this makes sense. I'm sorry. Going back in the morning, when I was loading these things, some of the names of the clips were coming up sequential and different. And I'm like, that's weird. So I reloaded things a couple of times and said, okay, this makes sense. Okay, this is the RBG story from 2016 you're referencing.
The justice who started the fight. Ruth Bader Ginsburg telling CNN about Trump. He's a faker. He really has an ego. Not an offhand comment. She slammed Trump in 3 separate interviews. In another saying, I can't imagine what the country would be with Donald Trump as our president. Even joking she'd have to move to New Zealand. Trump took to Twitter saying Ginsburg has embarrassed all by making very dumb political statements about me. Her mind is shot. Resign. The White House tonight lining up with Ginsburg.
She didn't earn the nickname the notorious RBG for nothing.
David, Supreme Court justices rarely weigh in on anything even remotely political.
So, you gotta love the ladies on The View. Shocked, pearl clutching. Our court has become so political. That was less than 10 years ago, 8 years ago. And even the White House defending RBG at that point, that would have been the Obama White House, saying she wasn't notorious RBG for nothing, excusing political comments, saying that Donald Trump was a disaster, saying that she might move to New Zealand in light of it. No, come on, ladies of The View. It's just not true that the Supreme Court has been totally neutral, above the fray in all cases. And in fact, when it was happening on your side, y'all were cheering a little bit about it.
Yeah. And what I liked about that last news report is that you got the response from the White House, and they were saying, well, she's called the notorious RBG. And that to me was the best part of that entire clip. Not that she had said it, but it was, well, this is who she is. And again, with Alito, this is who he is. Yeah. I mean, I can agree with the view that in part, I view the Supreme Court right now as slightly legitimate. Yeah. But it has nothing to do with flags and Alito and stuff. It has to do with not allowing Barack Obama to do a nomination. I mean, you could spike his nomination if you wanted, but the idea, because again, Republicans controlled the Senate at that time. So you did not have to confirm anybody that Barack Obama put up. But the idea that you said, nope, we're just not going to do it. It's outlined. Part of the rules. It's what you should do.
But that
and
would
you
be the
just
Senate,
said no.
not the Supreme Court.
No, but the reason is that's a Supreme Court seat that should have been debated, should have been there. And so in my opinion, there is a stolen seat. There is one seat there that should have gone and should have been allowed to be selected by Barack Obama. And because the justification made by the Republicans at the time was not the thing that they did a couple of years later. So they completely came out and said, this is the principle we're standing on. Oh, yeah, but when it applies to us, who cares? Principle, schminciple. Doesn't matter at all. Which,
Machiavellian in politics.
Absolutely it is. And it's not as if the Democrats wouldn't have done the same thing, given the same opportunity. I'm not saying that they are clean. I'm just saying that to me, it changes the balance and how I view the court. I view the court right now as slightly illegitimate because we didn't respect the process to put them on there.
Scalise's seat, right?
Yeah.
And they replaced Scalise with
Gorsuch.
Gorsuch.
Yeah. But Gorsuch shouldn't have been nominated because it should have been, honestly, there should have been a confirmation hearing, oddly enough, for Merrick Garland, because that was going to be the nominee.
Seat for him.
That would have been the nominee from Barack Obama.
I love Gorsuch, though. Well, with the exception of one decision. But Coloradan, and the stories he told of the whole nomination process. And if you read his book, going after the administrative state, that is like his biggest passion, which thank God for him, and the rulemaking process and the Chevron deference and how executive agencies can basically make law. They call rules without Congress voting on them is one of the biggest problems I think this country has, and it's one of his biggest passions that I appreciate.
I was listening to a judge yesterday, an interview. He had just written a book. He's famous. He's a higher level federal judge, and what he's famous for somewhat is he's blind. And so he was known as the blind judge. And he was talking about his disagreements with the Supreme Court. And it didn't fall along politics. He was really extricating them on inventing rules and doctrines. And he came at it from both sides, saying, look at it in this. The statute is there. You don't have to invent something else here, but they did. And he goes, and over here, the statute to say this doesn't work is right there in front of you, but you invent something else inside of the ruling.
Right.
And then inside of the rulings, you claim all sorts of other things that went into it that we now have to honor. And he's like, they just keep piling on reasons when it should be very cut and dry. If you can't make the ruling based on the statute, don't invent stuff.
Right.
And he was really taking shots at them. And again, it was completely apolitical as far as who he was going after.
We have this, Ken Buck wrote a book about this, and I agree. And it struck me because I was like, I think this way. The idea of co-equal branches.
Yeah.
We do not and never intended in this country to have co-equal branches.
No.
The intent was, if you go back to it, is that the legislative body should have the most power because they are directly represented and directly elected from the people.
Plus the largest number. So the idea being that when you got that number of people together, they would hopefully cause the least amount of harm versus giving it to a small group of people on a court or a single person in office. So that was kind of the function too, that hopefully we get the least amount of harm when we get a large people together.
Think about where we are today. They're the weakest.
They are.
They don't do anything.
No.
And in fact, the most powerful is either, depending on the issue, the executive branch going, for instance, just going to war.
Yeah,
if they want to,
or just signing executive orders to open, shut borders, or to forgive debt, or to ban people coming to the country, whatever it is. Just pick whatever you want. Flavor of the day.
Flavor of the day. They could just do it.
Yeah.
Or the Supreme Court, where you literally have nuclear battles going over confirmations at this point. To your point about what happened to Merrick Garland, So you end up with, I mean, we're going to die on our sword, nuclear battles over who the next Supreme Court justice is because they have way too much freaking power.
Yeah, I mean, like the confirmation of Kavanaugh was such a clown show.
Oh,
it's
my
embarrassing
goodness.
that everybody that's an American, and it doesn't matter if you are middle of the road, conservative or liberal, you should look at that Brett Kavanaugh confirmation and say, this is an embarrassment.
Yeah.
That this is such an embarrassment about how we went about the process and how they brought up. And again, I'm not going to adjudicate whether or not the allegations are true, but I disagree that even if they were true, that it should have derailed the choice, that's the issue. That's the incident. I get back to, and we won't talk about it on the air, the Clarence Thomas hearing and Anita Hill.
Yeah.
And it was one or two phrases or things that he said, and would that derail it? It didn't. And again, I just, where we're getting with it. And they've taken, you take the instance that you had in the Clarence Thomas and you magnify it and blow it up by about 1,000 times with what they did with Kavanaugh.
Yep.
It just gets ridiculous.
I mean, just allegations that were crazy, just purely crazy. All right, we'll get to the phone lines here in just a second. I want to talk to you about Colorado Christian University. Is your student ready to live out their faith and prepare for their future career? For over 100 years, Colorado Christian University has been educating the next generation of Christian leaders in a distinctly Christ-centered community. CCU is the premier interdenominational Christian university in the Rocky Mountain region. They offer a world-class education, ranking in the top 2% of all colleges nationwide for their rigorous academics. Students can choose from over 100 undergraduate programs ranging from psychology, entrepreneurship, theology, and engineering to their nationally acclaimed nursing and education programs. CCU cultivates real faith that equips students for all areas of life. Their small campus and Christ-centered community set CCU apart. At CCU, students are known by name, not by number. Professors are mentors, developing students spiritually and professionally. No matter what degree path they choose, your student will graduate from Colorado Christian University ready to impact the world with grace and truth. To learn more and apply, go to ccu.edu/apply. That's ccu.edu/apply. All right, we'll continue with your calls and texts, and I want to get into how John Roberts responded to the secret liberal undercover reporter. Did he blow it? Or did he respond in a way that didn't quite get the New York Times, Rolling Stones treatment? We'll get into this and more. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. President Joe Biden's son Hunter has been found guilty of lying about his drug use when buying a gun. It's another unprecedented development in American justice and politics as legal wrangling continues to hang over the tightly fought race for the White House. Just weeks after former president and 2024 candidate Donald Trump was criminally convicted, Hunter Biden now faces a potential sentence of 25 years behind bars. It's within the president's purview to issue a pardon, but President Biden confirmed he won't be using that power for his only surviving son. Troops from Russia and Belarus have started the second stage of military drills to practice the deployment of tactical nuclear weapons. The Allies have blamed threats from Western powers for making the drills necessary, accusing the United States and its European allies of pushing the world to the brink of nuclear confrontation by providing weapons to Ukraine. Iceland has issued a new licence to its last remaining whaling company, allowing it to continue hunting for another season. The controversial decision was strongly criticised by animal rights campaigners who have long sought to halt the practice and protect the marine mammals. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
Just had a.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. A liberal documentarian went undercover to try to catch Samuel Alito and John Roberts in unflattering comments about the direction of the Supreme Court. Rolling Stone headlining, Justice Alito caught on tape discussing how Battle for America can't be compromised. Not really. It's a headline that doesn't make a lot of sense. This from Ed Whalen over at National Review. Jaded as I am, I'm still stunned by the stupidity of Rolling Stone's article on the new secret recording of Justice Alito's remarks and by how eagerly so many people, news outlets, have parroted the article's distorted take. Gives a few observations. Here's the key one. The article asserts that Alito's unguarded comments highlight the degree to which Alito makes little effort to present himself as a neutral umpire, calling judicial balls and strikes, they said, and it purports to draw a strong contrast between his remarks and the separately recorded remarks of Chief Justice Roberts. But as James Toronto points out in the Wall Street Journal, the article advances the claim only by utterly ignoring the only discussion of jurisprudence in the 6.5-minute recording of Alito. Here's what Alito said in the exchange with Lauren Windsor, posing as a conservative that Rolling Stone does not quote or refer to. Miss Windsor, I think it's taking us to the brink of, very serious and perhaps like non-repairable rifts in this country. And I, for one, I support your ruling of Dobbs. I'm very pro-life, but I don't know how we bridge the gap. How do we get people? And then Justice Alito responds, I wish I knew. I don't know. I don't think it's something we can do. But the court can't do anything, she responds. We have a very defined role. We need to do what we're supposed to do, but this is a bigger problem. This is way above us. Talking about just kind of the division, the moral division in this nation, which Samuel Alito's not wrong about. One side's going to win or not. Think the sanctity of life. It's either a human being at the moment of conception, or it's just a clump of cells that you can dispose of. Right? One side's we'll compromise, but when it comes to moral truths, one side's going to win on that, and one side's going to lose. But he specifically says about the Supreme Court, we have a very defined role. We need to do what we can, what we're supposed to do, but this is a bigger problem. I want to listen to Chief Justice John Roberts' response to a similar question. You play that, Billy?
I did want to ask you, specifically, with everything that's going on right now, it's just, it's a very tumultuous time in the country, and I'm just curious, from your perspective on the court, how do we start to repair the polarization?
Well, the first thing I think is to tell me when the non-tumultuous time has been here. You look at the court, what the court was doing in the 60s, what the court was doing during the New Deal, what the court was doing, after Dred Scott and all this. It's kind of a regular thing. People think it's so different and special. It's been pretty tumultuous for a long time.
So you think this is a normal period?
I don't know if it's normal. Since I've been here 20 years, there have been quieter times. But the idea that the court is in the middle of a lot of tumultuous stuff going on, that's nothing new.
I guess I wouldn't say that it's not like it's an innovative thing. It's not new. I guess I really feel like we're at a point in our country where the polarization is so extreme that it might be irreparable.
Oh, I don't think that.
I think
polarization is extreme is like the Civil War. We did that during Vietnam. People were getting killed, and I was there in Vietnam. This is all right. It's not all right, but it's not like it's as dramatically different. It's a common thing. People with their own perspective think this is so extraordinary. I don't know.
But you don't think there's a role for the court in guiding us toward a more moral path?
No, I think the role for the court is deciding the cases. If I start, would you want me to be in charge of guiding us toward a more moral path? That's for the people we elect. That's not for lawyers.
Well, I guess I believe that the founders were godly, like we're Christians, and I think that we live in a Christian nation, and that our Supreme Court should be guiding us in that path.
Yeah, I don't know that we live in a Christian nation. I know a lot of Jewish and Muslim friends who would say maybe not. And it's not our job to do that. It's our job to decide the cases as best we can.
Well, I don't want to monopolize your time. I really appreciate you.
Not at all.
So she's really trying to bait him into something. By the way, the left doesn't do this as well as James O'Keefe. Sorry. It's the dates that are the funniest videos. That's how James O'Keefe gets them. He goes through the dating apps, and then you get a little bit of alcohol into them, and then they really start to say stuff.
Except for him and the whole fraudy things, the crime things. But
oh, what's that?
James has been pinched on a couple of things.
Oh,
but
and
fraud
and some of his personal life stuff too.
So,
but this is. I thought Chief Justice John Roberts' response was really good in that. So one, kind of reminding people about what we've been through in this country, the turmoil. I mean, there was a point where we were shooting bullets at each other. We were so angry. So this notion that we're divided beyond repair, all that stuff, he kind of reminds her and kind of brings her back to the idea of like, no, we've made this through this. I disagree a little bit with some of his comments on the nature of being a Christian nation, but I saw both of them. And you go back to Alito's comments. We have a very defined role. We need to do what we're supposed to do. The moral divisions are a bigger problem. This is way above us. This effort to paint the court as some radical Christian nationalist entity. I mean, listen to the New York Times. Alito's godliness comments echoes a broader Christian movement. Justice Samuel Alito's secretly recorded remarks come as conservatives have openly embraced the view that American democracy must be grounded in a Christian worldview, and then goes on for about 10 paragraphs tying this to the essentially Christian nationalist movement. My goodness. I think both of them did a good job of saying, yes, there's division in this nation. Yes, things are broken, but we have a very defined role. And a lot of the stuff needs to be argued above us. I think they did that with Dobbs' decision. They sent that back to the state saying, all right, you want to have Colorado do abortion unrestricted? Colorado can do that. Texas wants to restrict abortion? Texas can do that. They have answered, and I think ruled in ways that have said on these moral issues, will allow the people to decide.
I disagree. And I think Alito's was much more politically motivated and loaded than Roberts. Roberts, to me, that's how the question should have been answered. And Alito drew some more conclusions and aspersions and other things inside of his answers and comments that lead you to believe that sometimes he may not be as impartial as Roberts is. Because, Roberts kind of said, no, it's our job to decide this. That's for legislators. We're not supposed to be the moral thing. But Alito does, sort of, and based on, things that he's done, complain about the morality and everything else. And Dobbs' decision, I disagree with as well on that one. The thing for me is I feel that part of the reason we have this issue right now with the Supreme Court is based on the balance. And now that there is a majority of conservatives, everybody assumes, and even on the conservative side, they're going to make the conservative ruling. So now we get what we want. We can overturn abortion. We can overturn gay marriage. There's movements right now in states, and this would go to the Supreme Court, to restrict access to birth control. You look at IV treatments. And so that's the idea, is where the illegitimacy, easy for me to say, comes from, in my mind, is in part because both sides view the Supreme Court as their means to an end. The liberals think if they had more liberal justices, they get more liberal stuff done.
But help me understand, because the argument is made from the New York Times that essentially what you get with Justice Alito is an effort to force Christian nationalist worldview upon the rest of the nation. What decisions coming from the U.S. Supreme Court is forcing a morality upon the rest of the nation.
I would say Dobbs in some cases.
But they allow the states to choose. They didn't force Colorado to go one way or the other.
But the way in which Alito wrote it, there were some morality and discussions and things, and he did jump some areas that aren't necessarily as applicable. He jumped over certain areas of jurisprudence and history inside of the U.S. and went back to some Old English stuff. He ignored some things that were detrimental to his case and enhanced some things that were good for his case. But that's what everybody does.
But the actual law that comes from it, Roe v. Wade forced a one-size-fits-all viewpoint upon all states. Obergefell did the same thing, forces gay marriage upon all the states. Who's actually forcing a morality upon people? It's not the conservative court.
Well,
they're allowing states to decide.
Did the ruling on gay marriage force any church to perform that ceremony?
Not churches, but states.
But that's civil. It's different. And we do try to have a separation of church and state in this country.
Yeah.
So the idea that it was something that was against someone's religion, I disagree with. That's a civil marriage thing. We have civil marriages and we have religious marriages.
What state can opt out of Obergefell? No state can.
Well, why? But hang on a sec. The
Like
issue
in
is
Colorado.
No. The issue is the morality and the religion. The religion is what you're talking about. So
I'm
unless you
talking
want
about law.
Yeah, but okay, then explain to me why that based on someone's sexual orientation or relationship they're in, they should be barred from access to certain laws.
Right. So
why should that be happen? No,
but you're not
talking about
answering
it.
my question,
Okay,
which the original question was which court, a left-leaning court or a right-leaning court, is actually forcing its worldview in law upon other states.
What I did is just in law. And so the idea and what I would say would be the Dobbs decision is in part. The other one, I can't remember it now. There are some gun decisions. There are some other ones, but it's only because if you agree with it, then you don't think it's forcing anything because it reinforces your worldview. And same thing on the liberal side. If you agree with a court decision, you don't believe because if you agree with Roe versus Wade, you don't feel that the court is imposing your worldview on everybody else. But that would be, if you disagree with Roe, that would be your impression of it. That's just how it happens. That is absolutely how it happens.
But the Dobbs decision made no statement about when life begins, none of that stuff. It simply said states have the right to decide this. And so it allowed states to go back. Obergefell forced gay marriage upon states that didn't want it. And you get the New York Times trying to make the argument that somehow because it's a right-leaning court, you're going to get Christian nationalism forced upon the country. And what I'm pointing out is that actually you get more freedom to be able to choose the laws you want based upon a conservative court, whereas a liberal court does take their worldview and force it upon everybody.
Well, the weird part is when you talk about allowing people choices, that ends up in constraining individuals' freedoms because the states that have been allowed to choose whether or not they want abortion rights or not, the individuals in those states that may want to seek an abortion may talk to you a lot about the constraints on their freedom and choices.
But they have the freedom to be able to elect people differently that they want or travel to a state where that takes place.
No, they don't. They don't have that freedom. They don't. No, hang on, Jeff. They don't.
But
No, wait,
the point
please,
being,
no, hang on. No, wait.
Yeah.
They don't have that freedom. That freedom. There are states that are trying to constrict that freedom. The city of Austin, just in the last 14 days, was debating a measure to make it illegal to drive through Austin if you're going to get an abortion out of state. If you drive through, they're going to make it illegal. Don't talk to me about freedom and choices.
Yeah,
that's a constraint.
This goes back to which worldview actually forces more upon somebody. The conservative worldview coming out of the Supreme Court, because you get this panic, and we're way out of time. But you get this panic coming from the New York Times that somehow Christian nationalism is going to be forced upon everybody, when I think it's the left that forces their worldview. All right. I can't even do a read.
No, we can't. We got to go.
You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710. We'll see how much time we have left. KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Great conversation between Billy and I on whether or not the U.S. Supreme Court is more restrictive if it leans to the right or to the left and pushing their agenda upon people. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. The New York Times coming out with an article saying Alito's godliness comments echoes a broader Christian movement, essentially making the argument that he's a hidden secret Christian nationalist, forcing his will, dictating his theocracy on high.
If he is, he's bad at it. I mean, he's really, really bad at it. And, again, and I think it also is the idea that the conclusion of if you don't like the makeup of the court and you feel one way or the other, then they're imposing their view on you. And that leads to the illegitimacy of the court. And that's part of it. And that's on us. That's not on them. But, oh, well.
Morning, guys. This is from Doug. Do you feel that in cases like Dobbs, the U.S. Supreme Court isn't forcing an issue, but instead saying it isn't covered in the Constitution, so it isn't a federal matter? It should be decided by the states. As the Constitution states, all items not covered specifically by the Constitution shall be handed back to the states. Doug, great text. Appreciate it. Feel free to give us a call on this, 303-696-1971. When we come back, talking to Pepperdine University, is this, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's fire it up, Billy. 8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, June 12th. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Billy Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center, crazy, New York Times, Rolling Stone, secret recordings. Oh, my goodness. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab your coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up here in just a second, Pete Peterson, School of Public Policy at Pepperdine University, is going to join us to discuss California fast food restaurants have to cut 10,000 jobs thanks to the state's $20 minimum wage. Are you surprised by this one? Does the state of California continue its downhill spiral? We'll get into this and more. You're not going to miss this conversation with Pete Peterson. He's one of the smartest guys I know. Beautiful campus, Pepperdine and Malibu. So we'll get into a conversation with him in just a second. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 71 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the low 90s today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, President Biden's son, Hunter, convicted Tuesday on all 3 counts in his federal firearms trial in Delaware. President Biden was talking gun control on the same day and then interrupted by Hamas supporters, but then continued with gun control.
Who in God's name needs a magazine which can hold 200 shells?
Terrorists, criminals, cartel. Yeah.
I like magazines with 200.
Yeah, especially
shells.
if the bad guys have them, right?
When I was campaigning, when I was a senator, going through the wetlands of Delaware to meet all the people who were most upset.
I don't believe this
What do you
story.
mean I need that done? I said, guess what? If you need 12 to 100 bullets in a gun and a magazine, you're the lousiest shot I've ever heard.
Oh, Joe.
I'm serious.
No,
I swear the left thinks you only use guns for hunting. That is all that exists in their minds. They have no sense of the history of the world, that the worst thing that can happen to a country is that the only people that have guns are the government.
Yes.
Because this, and you get this like mindset, like, oh, we're getting rid of the guns. No. You're only getting rid of the guns for the citizens. The government is definitely not getting rid of their guns. In fact, they're arming themselves up.
It always comes back to their God is the government. You just talked about the last hour. That's, Alito's talking about, wow, he actually has faith and they have faith in the government. They trust people. And there you go. That's the issue. The Republican-led House expected to vote today to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress. This comes after the Justice Department refused to turn over audio recordings of President Biden's interview with the special counsel investigating his handling of classified documents. US 285 near Conifer has reopened after a semi flipped over and dumped a load of large, heavy pipes and pieces of metal on Tuesday. Some of the pipes landed on nearby cars, killing a person inside one of the vehicles. Witnesses say the semi was speeding down the highway shortly before the crash. A 74-year-old hiker who was missing for 2 days has been found alive and safe. Jennifer Hearn left with her dog to go on a hike to hike the Triangle Peak Trail near Aspen on Sunday, but didn't return. Rescue crews found her dog close to a home near Triangle Park Tuesday morning and later found Hearn after concentrating the search in the surrounding area. Officials say she was found on a steep rock-covered hillside near Woody Creek. That's good news. Fire crews battling a large wildfire near Twin Lakes in Lake County. The fire was first reported early Tuesday afternoon, and officials say 200 acres of land have burned since then. Popular YouTuber Benny Potter died in a crash near Fort Collins over the weekend on I-25. Potter's SUV veered off the interstate, went across the frontage road, and rolled several times. Potter was known for running the YouTube channel Comic Storian, which has more than 3 million subscribers. The crash is under investigation. Hamas is responding to a U.S.-backed ceasefire proposal in Gaza. The terrorists submitted a response Tuesday asking for reassurance about an end to the war with Israel. ICE agents are arresting 8 illegal immigrants in the U.S. who have suspected ties to ISIS.
ICE agents arrested the men over the weekend in New York, Los Angeles, and Philadelphia. Sources told NBC News on Tuesday that the 8 suspects had been on the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force radar. It turns out none of the men have criminal records. They have not yet been charged with a terror connection or a plot. Paul DeCastro, NBC News Radio, New York.
Rockies over the Twins 5-4 last night. It's getaway day today. They start first pitch late this morning. NBA Finals continue tonight in Dallas as the Mavericks trail 2-0. 65 in Castle Rock, 67 in Lafayette, and 71 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue on Wednesday, Hump Day. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. Comfortably warm in the 80s today, sunny to partly sunny. There won't be a lot of them, but there'll be a few widely scattered thunderstorms this afternoon and evening. A low tonight near 60. Getting a little on the hot side. Wednesday and Thursday, making the low to mid-90s for both days. Lows at night, low to mid-60s, only isolated thunderstorms. A better chance for thunderstorms, not as hot, back to the 80s Friday and Saturday. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Billy, I'm looking at the CFS. This makes me a really big nerd. I'm looking at the cubic feet per second discharge taking place in Nathrop, Colorado, because that's where Browns Canyon rafting is.
Oh, water. Talking water.
The high in 1980 was 4,890 feet per second. The average right now, if it was this type of year, the average would be about 2,000.
Okay.
It is recording today 4,740.
Wow.
It is within about 150 CFS of the all-time record.
Wow.
Up there in Buena Vista, Colorado.
Jeez. Now, again,
that is big water, man.
For Colorado, great to have the water.
It's great
to have it,
for the farmers and all that stuff.
But wow, that is really
And what
moving.
it does to the river is it kind of, it washes out some of the big stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden it's like rafting on the Mississippi.
Yeah.
Right? It's so much water, you're just kind of going down. But then it makes totally new rapids. So
yeah, and it cleans stuff up too, because when you get that much water moving through, it takes a lot of the gunk, everything else that gets out of there. Yeah, it's really good. And oh man, but the problem is there are going to be people that are unlike you that are going to have no idea and just think this looks like fun. And
jump in.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
No, don't.
No.
Just be careful.
Yeah, be very careful.
All right. New York Post reporting California fast food restaurants have cut 10,000 jobs thanks to the state's $20 minimum wage. California fast food restaurants have slashed nearly 10,000 jobs because of the state's new $20 minimum wage, as struggling franchises cut labor costs and raise prices to survive, a major trade group said this week. The California Business and Industrial Alliance slammed Democrat Governor Gavin Newsom for pushing through the law, which went into effect April 1st and was blamed for forcing one beloved taco chain to shutter 48 locations in the state last week. California businesses have been under total attack and total assault for years, said the president of that trade organization. It's just another law that puts businesses in further jeopardy. Several major chains, including McDonald's, Burger King, and even low-cost favorite In-N-Out In-N-Out's not a low-cost favorite.
No, not at all.
It's like the most expensive out of all of them. Jacked up prices to offset the higher wages. Listen to some of these. Many had to cut employee hours and some have expedited a move to automation. Monzo said nearly 10,000 jobs have been cut across the food restaurants since Newsom signed the California Assembly Bill 1287 into law last year, adding that officials were living in a fantasy land by thinking that drastic wage increases will help workers or businesses. You can only raise prices so much. People are not going to pay $20 for a Big Mac. It's not going to happen. The trade organization took out a full-page ad in the USA Today that included mock obituaries for popular fast food brands. Rubio's California Grill, known for its fish tacos, closed 48 of its nearly 134 locations at the end of May, the first major chain to fall victim to the new law. The San Diego-based company called the rising cost of doing business in the state for its closures. Then the chain filed for bankruptcy on Wednesday. Another fast food restaurant, Foster Freeze, recently closed a location in Fresno, saying its franchise owner could no longer afford to pay workers the upgraded salaries. Some of the here's the increase in costs going up. Beverages at Starbucks in California were 50 cents more expensive effective April 1st. Taco Bell raised menu prices by 3%. Let's see. The Fat Burger franchise raised 8% to 10% in response to the new law. Chick-fil-A raising prices spiked 10% between mid-February and mid-April. A recent survey by Lending Tree found 78% of consumers now consider fast food to be a luxury purchase. I agree with that. It's a luxury purchase. There is no difference between me taking my kids to McDonald's and me taking them to Chili's at this point.
You're doing it wrong. You're very bad at this. You do not know how to play this game. If you do not understand how to do this, you do not understand how to play this game. Okay, this is the idea. Fed my family at one of the McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's. 4 of us, $23. You don't know how to do this.
How'd you do that?
Again, I know what I'm doing. That's the thing. Just like I go into I play the games with the coupons and things at the grocery store. People that are coming out going, I'm paying this much at the grocery store. I'm like, you're really, really bad at this game.
You're one of those coupon. They have like reality shows about those guys that come out with like 100 boxes of Jell-O.
And again, don't have to do that at all.
Penny.
You can do it, but that's an extreme form. But if you understand how the things work and what happens inside the apps and how things like right now, one of the best deals is at Taco Bell. Absolutely phenomenal meal deal, but you've got to have the app. If you have the app for Taco Bell, they have an online exclusive where you can create your own cravings box for $5.99. So it's $6 total. And you know what it is? It's a medium drink, a side, which would mean either you get the little bit of nachos or you get the cinnamon twists.
Right.
And then you get to choose a taco or a burrito, and they're the basic ones, taco or burrito, and then you get to choose Crunchwrap Supreme, a chalupa, a gordita, or something else. There's 4. So you get a main item, you get a secondary item, you get a side, and a drink. $5.99. Again, if you're not doing it this way, you're doing it wrong. If you're walking into McDonald's, you're like, I'm going to take the $9 burger. No.
What do you think about them losing 10,000 jobs in light of this?
It's expected. Yeah, it's expected because the wage increase was so dramatic so quickly. And anytime any input costs increase, you're going to see job lost or changes inside the industry. Yeah, so not until, but the industry will balance itself out. Jobs will come back. Restaurants will come back. The restaurants that are closed, that now, I understand the idea. The Big Fish taco place closed. If you're sitting on the sidelines and you're thinking about opening up a restaurant in an area, what's your opportunity at this point? Fish tacos, because the big one just closed. So this also creates opportunity.
I know you're not an opponent of minimum wage, but what seems to me is like we're in this mindset that minimum wage needs to be a living wage, which I don't think it should be.
Well, here's the thing.
It needs to be a base starting, like when you're 16 years old working at, I don't know, Mickey D's, like I did.
But you understand,
it's
but
there
hang on
to
a sec,
start.
But the issue is that you're not expecting all fast food workers to live at home with mom and dad, are you? Because when we talk about 16-year-olds, that's why 16-year-olds were able to do that as far as the wage. So what I'm wondering is, are we saying everybody who works fast food or everyone who's a restaurant worker should have to be able to live with their parents or someone else that is handling those larger bills?
I think servers would be a little different because they can make money off of tips. By the way, I think it's brilliant that Donald Trump is calling for tips not to be taxed. I've never understood why we did that to begin with.
I don't understand. I don't understand why me walking through the door of your restaurant means that I have to subsidize your employee wages. That's stupid. It's insulting. I mean, I tip, and I tip well because I worked food service. I have thousands of hours in food service. I tip well. It is crap. I should not have to subsidize
you don't like
your
the whole
wages.
Tipping, you don't like the whole tipping idea at all?
No, it's stupid. It is stupid because what it is imagine this. Imagine in any other industry that you're saying, well, my customer has to, out of the goodness of their heart, contribute some money so I can pay my employees. Shut up. I mean, you show up at a construction part and they go, I'm charging this much to the construction, but if you give us this much tip, I can give some more money to my workers. But shut up.
But going back to the idea of minimum wage.
Yeah.
If you're working fast food and minimum wage, I'm not talking about management. I'm talking about you're just starting out, which is what the minimum wage is supposed to be. It should not be considered a living wage. You shouldn't be paying a 16-year-old just starting out enough money to have their own apartment and live.
Question, have you been then into the fast food restaurants? Are they all teenagers working there?
No, but if you're 40, is that I don't think that's where you should be working. Right.
Here's the idea, though.
That's like
hang on a sec, though.
brokenness.
But again, that's not your choice. You don't get to make
What do
that
you mean
choice.
It's not their choice.
No,
They've
that's not.
made
No, I said your
decisions.
choice. Your choice. It is not your choice to tell a 40-year-old they can't work at McDonald's.
I'm not
That's not
telling
your
them they
choice.
can't.
Yeah, you did.
But
You
they
basically did there.
shouldn't
Yeah,
be
you did.
getting.
You said they shouldn't be working there.
What were they doing with the last 25 years of their life?
I don't know, but my guess is, and I hate to bring it up, but, we got a dude that works down the hall in the video, John Corbliss, who's recovering from addiction, prison, and homelessness.
Right.
Chances are he would be one of those older workers inside of that fast food place that you feel shouldn't be there. And that's the idea.
I didn't say it shouldn't be there,
Yes, you
but
did.
what I'm saying
Yes,
is
you
that
did.
they
They shouldn't be
shouldn't
there.
You shouldn't be mandating law upon these businesses that a 16-year-old starting out in their life, their very first job, should be mandated by law to make enough money to have their own apartment, insurance, groceries. No way. That's why you're losing 10,000 jobs out of these states, because you took that one size approach and mandated it upon every business that's employing these kids.
Why, again, I don't understand why you're constraining the labor force to only teenagers. And that's the issue here, is that when we have this discussion, many times people are like, no, teenagers starting out. So you're assuming or saying that the fast food industry should only employ teenagers. If that's the premise, well, then hang on a second. If the issue is that the fast food industry should not only employ teenagers, stop saying a 16-year-old and how much money they're making. Because if that's your benchmark, if you're saying I am judging the employment status and the wages based on a 16-year-old, you're telling me that you feel teenagers should be all the people employed in the restaurant.
Not at all.
Not managers,
Bill,
but the
Bill,
line workers.
Nobody is forcing a business to pay somebody more if the business wants to. So if, let's say, the business like McDonald's finds a 40-year-old guy who's been through some hard times and comes into them and says, look, I do have some experience. For 25 years, I did this, but I went through a hard time. I'd like to start out beginning here. Can you pay me a living wage in order to make it? Sure. The business has every right to do that, and I believe they should. What I don't believe is that law should come in and mandate to that business that the teenager just starting out needs to be paid a living wage, enough, so much so that they could have their own apartment, they could have their own grocery, they could pay their own insurance. Because what happens is what you're seeing in California, where the businesses go, I can't do that. I can't pay a 16-year-old that amount of money. We're going to shut down the business. 10,000 people have lost their jobs. Now the wage they're getting is zero.
Well, here's the thing is you keep coming back to the 16-year-old. And if that's your issue about not paying the 16-year-old that much money, fix is easy. You just exempt teenagers from the minimum wage law. And
You
write a
could.
law.
They
You write a
didn't
law.
do that,
No,
though.
I know, I understand that. But the issue is if your pain point is teenagers under this minimum wage law are getting too much money, stop complaining about the minimum wage law. Because what happens is if you want it changed, you're also hurting everybody else that is not a teenager. If your gritch is teenagers, change the rule about teenagers.
Is we're forcing businesses to pay. You're literally getting government planning coming in here. This isn't the business deciding what that person's worth and how much they should be paid. This is the government, which has no experience, no understanding of what's going on, forcing this upon businesses. And the result is you actually have a minimum wage of 0 because 10,000 people lost their jobs.
I disagree with your statement that the government has no idea what's going on and doesn't understand things. Hang on. Last time I checked, the government employs a lot of people. They have a lot of people. They have a lot of businesses. They have some economic arms. They do.
They don't know anything of what's going on.
And again, it's not the federal government. It's Newsom. And Newsom was virtue signaling. And this was done very poorly because of how it increased and the dramatic nature of it. It went up way too quickly. The increase was nearly 25% in some areas. If any input cost, I don't care what it is, if any input cost rises by 25% in the business, you're in trouble. You are going to have to make some tough choices. And remember all the bitching and moaning we had about the supply chain. Okay. All of that was my business costs are getting out of control. I'm going to have to lay people off. I'm going to have to close businesses. Same thing, because their input cost raised at such a percentage so quickly, it caused business problems. Where Gavin Newsom messed this up is because he made it jump up so quickly, so fast. That was absolutely stupid.
You're proving the point that they have no idea what they're doing when it comes to business.
I said that he virtue signaled on this one. I'm not saying he doesn't have any idea what he's doing for business. I'm
Just
saying he
shut down a whole bunch of businesses.
No, he didn't.
$10,000.
No. Again, he was virtue signaling, and there are going to be problems. But the issue is that those jobs and those restaurants are going to come back. If you're sitting on the sidelines and you have a fish taco idea for a restaurant, there's your opportunity. The largest fish taco chain in California has just shut down. You now have a business opportunity. That entrepreneur that is sitting there now has a business opportunity and gets to deal with it under these rules and has to set up that business. Yes.
I think that this is the pathway and the reason why in liberal democratic cities and states, it is so dang expensive to live there because you get this type of government interference that artificially raises prices because they're going to have to pass on these costs to everybody else. So you end up with a $25 burrito.
They do that anyway. When they give a raise to the CEO, they pass the cost on the consumers. All of that is.
But that's at least a free market. In this case, gas is more expensive. Burritos are more expensive. Coffee's more expensive. Everything in California is more expensive because of this type of artificial inflation that comes from the government. All right. Give me a call on this. What do you think? Should the minimum wage be raised? Why not have $20 minimum wage in Colorado, $50 minimum wage in Colorado? Why not just keep driving it up, right? It's got to be a living wage. The government needs to step in. These greedy businesses are not paying people enough to be able to live. Or is this government interference that's artificially inflating everything? Do you agree with Bill? Do you agree with me? 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971 or text us on the 710 KNUS app. I want to talk to you about Roll 'em Out Shelves. Absolutely a wonderful company. I've gotten to know Joyce and Brent Tolliver since coming to work here, and it's a small business. It's owned by a family, so you work directly with them. You have issues, you're going to call and talk to the owner of the business directly. That matters. They came out to our house and measured everything, and they've already put in the shelves. I love them. We use them every single day, and what it does is it opens up your entire kitchen. You're no longer having to shove things in the back of your cabinets and then forgetting about them. You can easily access them, so it makes your life so much easier. Begin the affordable transformation with your home for less than $1,000 when Roll 'em Out Shelves efficiently organizes your space with sturdy Baltic birch shelves built right here in Colorado and guaranteed for life. Call for your free in-home estimate today, 303-475-9601 or rollemoutshelves.com. That's 303-475-9601. 9601 or rollemoutshelves.com. Be sure to tell them Jeff sent you. When we come back, Pete Peterson from Pepperdine is going to weigh in on this. What has California done with this $20 minimum wage? You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. The US Secretary of State remains in the Middle East as negotiations continue to try and bring about an end to the conflict in Gaza. Antony Blinken is in Qatar as mediators try and salvage a ceasefire and hostage deal, with the war now entering its 9th month. From Tel Aviv, Sarah Coates has more.
Hamas has given its response to this proposal, but is sticking to its position that it wants a full comprehensive ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and a withdrawal of all Israeli forces. This is certainly something that the Israelis will not be likely to agree to, given that they say they will continue fighting in Gaza until there is a full defeat of Hamas and also a return of more than 100 Israeli hostages that do remain there. But certainly mediation attempts are ongoing, which is the reason that the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is once again in the Qatari capital, Doha, really trying to get something over the line.
A new task force has been launched to crack down on the sale and distribution of illicit e-cigarettes. The new enforcement effort by the US Justice Department and the Food and Drug Administration is trying to protect young people from illegal vaping products. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Joining us is Pete Peterson. He's the Braun Family Dean's Chair at the Pepperdine School of Public Policy. We're talking California fast food restaurants have cut 10,000 jobs thanks to the state's $20 minimum wage, proving that, once again, when the government gets involved, the actual minimum wage is zero because you don't have a job. Let's go to Pete Peterson. Thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Great to be with you guys.
So, Pete, you're out there at Pepperdine University, headquartered in Malibu, California, beautiful Malibu, California. Has this government involvement in trying to raise the minimum wage to $20 in California helping or harming the state?
Well, the initial results are certainly not favorable. Like you said, the data is showing that we've had a dismissal of 10,000 employees at this level. But some of the impacts, unfortunately, we're going to have to wait to see. And as most of the economists who understand the importance of free markets are seeing, the impacts are going to be wide ranging. Of course, this particular law is impacting fast food chains with 60 or more stores nationally, not just in California. But with any kind of law like this, it's not just those chain stores, it's all the other smaller competitors for wage earners that are going to be impacted by this. So I already just saw a recent article just a couple days ago that workers in school lunch counters and cafeterias are many school districts are now wondering if they're going to be able to match this $20 minimum wage, which of course is going to drive up costs of education and then drive up taxes again. So unfortunately, the initial results are bad, and what we're seeing for the future is even worse.
One of the arguments in favor of this is that we need to pay people a living wage so that they can live. Why not have a $20 minimum wage? What's wrong with the government stepping in and saying that there's a base here that we need to make sure that people are getting paid a wage that they can live on?
Well, one of the things you first have to look at is who are these employees that are being impacted by this? And most of the data shows that for fast food workers, 60% of them are 24 years old or younger, and 30% are between 16 and 20 years old. It's really just a third of the workers that could be construed to be looking for or considering minimum wage. The second thing, and this is the point that you let in on, and I think it's so important, there's something worse than the minimum wage. It's no wage. And for many of the impacts that we're seeing right now in the state of California, that first rung of the ladder for those of us who started, my first job was working in a small deli sandwich shop. Those opportunities are being reduced. So a lot of people in their teenage years and certainly early 20s, what this minimum wage hike is going to mean is really reduced opportunities. We're already seeing a number of stores, of these chain stores in particular, bringing kiosks to replace human beings, essentially. And so what we're seeing is really a reduced number of employment opportunities, especially in those early years of employment.
Now, as you pointed out, 1/3 of those workers are over the age, I think, of 25. Was it 2/3 that are under 25 that work in
That's
fast
right.
food? So,
Yep, that's
I mean,
right.
and nothing is stopping restaurants from paying them more. Look, if I was a manager and somebody came in and said, I would like to work at a fast food restaurant, I'm 45 years old, I maybe made some bad choices that put me in a place where at 45, I'm working in a fast food restaurant at the bottom, right? We're not talking management. We're talking somebody just starting for whatever reason. Maybe they're coming off of homelessness or stuff. The restaurant has the freedom to be able to go, you know what, we're going to pay you a higher wage, but what they've done with this law is now mandate that 2/3 of fast food workers below the age of 25 need to make enough money to be able to have a living wage, which includes the ability to pay for an apartment, to be able to pay for groceries, to pay for car insurance, all that stuff. And what you're getting a lot of times, like, at 15, 16 years old, when I was just starting out, was I was generally pretty useless. I'm just learning the basic skills of how to be an employee and serve people. And, I clean trays. I clean the bathrooms at McDonald's. But I was just getting started in my career, and I was learning what it meant to be an employee.
Well, and you put your finger on another aspect of this. The turnover rate for fast food workers who work at the minimum wage on an annual basis is almost 100%. So these are jobs that are really not meant to be held for a long time. And at the same time, an employer, whether it's McDonald's or a local deli or sandwich shop, needs to put in some time just in training employees. So the employers are already investing in employees, even in some of these low-skilled areas. Now you're adding to that cost with this minimum wage law, which again just makes the whole aspect of hiring an employee, even at these the low-skill areas, just really difficult to do.
Talking with Pete Peterson, he's the Braun Family Dean's Chair at the Pepperdine School of Public Policy. Pete, you live in California. Those of us in Colorado feel like we're your little step brothers, little brothers. It's just coming our way. We're going to get whatever you guys are doing. It's coming our way. In some ways, we're even advancing and surpassing you in our leftism. Give us a sense into the big issues you're facing. You lead a school of public policy in California that you're dealing with Gavin Newsom and the total Democrat control of that state.
Well, what we're seeing, first off, are these really bad economic decisions. Most of the data is showing that the Californians who are leaving the state and going to places like Colorado, but certainly other states like Texas and Florida, are people in the lower and middle income household income range. And so California has always been seen as this kind of middle class paradise, but really it's becoming a state of the rich and the poor. And it really is our economic policies like this minimum wage law, which are driving up costs of living here in the state. I'm sure you're familiar with what it costs to buy a house here in California, the cost of gasoline. That's another aspect of this minimum wage law, especially for these chain stores and low-skill employees. That's only one cost that's been driven up in the last few years in California. I remember Andy Puzder, who used to be the president and CEO of Carl's Jr. Restaurants, and he moved his headquarters out of California to Nashville, Tennessee. And in large part, he was saying it just costs so much to launch and open a restaurant in California than any other state, that all the other costs now, including, of course, this minimum wage law, make it difficult for employment. So we're really driving people out of this state, and people are voting with their feet as they move to places like Colorado, Nevada, Arizona, Texas, and so forth.
Is Gavin Newsom a good governor? I mean, some people are putting him up there to possibly be the next presidential nominee from the Democrats. Give us a little insight into Gavin Newsom and what it's like to live in his state under his leadership.
Well, yeah, I think a lot has changed in the last couple of years. I agree with you that many people here have thought that Newsom might be the person, even with the Democratic convention, there being some shenanigans there that might put Newsom into that presidential candidate slot. But I have to say, his approval ratings have really dipped in this last year. He did have to stand for a recall election 3 years ago. He did manage to get through that. But really what we're seeing with Californians, we do have one of the highest unemployment rates in the country as a state. Certainly when you look at our cities, Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego, we're seeing higher homelessness rates. We're seeing people leaving the state. It's anticipated that at the next census, we're going to lose between 3 and 5 congressional seats, all due to a decrease in population. So I think a lot of people are unhappy with the economic state of California, but also these pocketbook issues like cost of living, like crime, like homelessness, and they're putting that at the governor's feet.
Pete, you teach students to engage in public policy. Help people understand, help me understand this too. Democrats and liberals and progressives make the viewpoint that we're going to spread the wealth around. We don't want just the rich and the poor. We want everybody to be able to benefit. So we're going to step in as a government to mandate on businesses things like minimum wage laws that are supposed to take some of the money from, CEOs and corporations that are too greedy and give it back to their employees. Why then, in states that are nearly fully controlled by Democrats, is everything more expensive? And in many ways, there's a greater disparity between the rich and the poor.
Well, I think one of the things you have to look at is how are these laws being passed in the first place? And one of the things, I'm not a California native. I grew up in the Northeast, but I've been out here now for 20 years. One of the things I didn't understand about California is how much of a union state it is. From the public sector unions to the private sector unions, they are the ones that are really driving public policy here. And whether you're looking at school-related issues, whether you're looking at this minimum wage law, which is being driven by the unions in many cases, whether you're looking at some of these environmental policies with cost of living increases and making it very unaffordable to build in the state due to some of these environmental policies. The unions as well as the environmental organizations are really the most powerful drivers of public policy. And unfortunately, when you look at election turnouts, California still is somewhere between 40 and 50% when you look at statewide turnouts. And when you look at some of these cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco, I'm sure many of your listeners have heard many of the problems that we're seeing in San Francisco. You're looking at 15 and 20% turnout in these elections, which again swings the balance of power to these concentrated special interest organizations. But again, I think what you have to look at is not just the results of these elections, but the results of what's happening to Californians. And as I've said, Californians are really voting with their feet, largely due to these cost of living issues that are being driven by these special interests.
Talking with Pete Peterson, he's the Braun family Dean's Chair with the Pepperdine School of Public Policy, which is located in Malibu, California. Pete, like us in Colorado, you're a conservative, I'm a conservative, and you just kind of feel helpless. California at one point was a red state. Colorado at one point was a red state. What are the conversations happening among conservatives about how to get the state back on the right track in California? We talked to Jonathan Keller with California Family Institute before, but what are those insights? Are people just giving up, moving to Texas and Florida? I've seen that happen with our friends, but there's still a remnant that's willing to continue to work here. And what is the pathway forward in a place like California?
Well, I do think that looking back at the recall, this was a really kind of a shockwave moment when during COVID and the closures, when Gavin Newsom was seen at the French Laundry, this very high-end restaurant up in the wine country, when he was telling everybody else to lock down. In many ways, that precipitated, as well as just the broader anger that California voters across party lines, but especially in the lower and middle classes, said that you really do have these elites that are living differently than the rest of us. And I think that was that initial window for many voters who may have always kind of pulled the lever for Democrats to say that, this is a different Democratic Party. I always think about that great Reagan quote when he was asked why he, went from being a registered Democrat to Republican. He said, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me. And I do think that we're seeing a much more ideological party on the left now that's running the state. And you're beginning to see in some of these local elections usually smaller cities, but you're definitely seeing more of a swing to the right. I think we're going to see in this upcoming election some congressional seats that may flip in California from D to R. And I do think that there's a growing distrust, again, not by the elites, but really in that middle class voting bloc in California that have said enough is enough. And whether it's these minimum wage laws or these very ideological approaches to education and what's being taught in our schools, there are a lot of things that have happened just in the last few years that I think are forcing Californians to think differently about the Democratic Party and their allegiance there.
So let's talk about the Pepperdine School of Public Policy. What are you all doing there? What is somebody who graduates there? What type of degree do they have, and what do they do with it?
Yeah, thanks. It is a 2-year Master in Public Policy degree, and so our students are usually going into the government sector, and that can be from local government working here in the area to Capitol Hill. Washington, D.C. is actually our second largest alumni chapter, so we send a lot of students and graduates there, mostly to work with legislators, policy advisors, certainly to think tanks. We've got graduates working at the Heritage Foundation, Cato Institute, other places in the conservative think tank world. And then, of course, you've got the policy-related private sector. And so we do have students that are working in conservative media, places like the Daily Wire, and other media outlets as well. And so it's really kind of this, what we would call a multi-sector degree, but it does prepare people to better engage. In fact, I just heard this morning, one of our graduates just won the Republican primary for a very crucial congressional seat next door to you there in Nevada. So we do have graduates that are also running for office as well.
You got some great professors that are working there. Stephen Hayward, Victor Davis Hanson, Robert George. So when someone goes through your program, what kind of thinking and thought leaders are they exposed to?
Well, those are certainly some of them. Kyron Skinner, really a foreign policy expert. We've got some great economists, Jim Krieger, Luisa Blanco, and they're going to be treated to a very unique curriculum that's going to balance an approach to public policy that understands that history and political philosophy are important ingredients, but you also have to be able to have to develop quantitative skills to understand these issues like the impact of minimum wage laws. And certainly we approach these subjects from a set of principles that you could call founding principles in the country, and certainly an approach to markets that understands the importance of free and competitive markets. And when we look at America's role in the world, it's one with an understanding that America is an exceptional nation and has an exceptional role to play in the world. And we do send graduates to go work in the State Department and in our intelligence agencies as well. So that certainly is another direction our students go.
Pete Peterson is the Braun family Dean's Chair at the Pepperdine School of Public Policy. If you want to learn more about them, go to publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu, publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. I will tell you this, they are producing some of the brightest future leaders in our government. Incredible school. I've gotten to know Pete, great guy. And as he just mentioned, some of the best faculty is aligning at this school. They are doing important work. Pete, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
So great to be with you guys. Thanks, Jeff.
Great to get some insight into what's happening in California. And there's still hope. There's still people like here in Colorado working to keep the state from totally devolving. Check them out, publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. All right, when we come back, we're going to get to the phone lines. What do you think about this minimum wage effort in California now? $20 costing the state 10,000 jobs. You're listening to the Show.
News Talk 710.
Great conversation happening about minimum wage, Billy. We've got emails saying, Bill, you don't know what you're talking about, and text messages saying, Jeff, you don't know what you're talking about. So we'll get to all of that and more. We're just out of time this hour. We'll continue it over in the next hour.
We got Sean, too, on the
Sean
phone.
will be up next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Hey, 9 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. It's Wednesday, June 12th. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center, and sometimes crazy. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab your coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. We're going to continue the conversation about minimum wage with Sean here in just a second. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 77 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the low 90s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, the logo NBA legend Jerry West has died. He passed away at his home at the age of 86. West served as inspiration for NBA's logo and won a championship with the Lakers in 1972. He was tough as nails, great basketball man. US 285 near Conifer has reopened after a semi flipped over and dumped a load of large heavy pipes and pieces of metal on Tuesday. Some of the pipes landed on nearby cars, killing a person inside one of the vehicles. Atlanta police say a gunman hijacked a bus with 17 people on it and held a gun to the driver's head. Authorities chased it up Interstate 85 in Gwinnett County. One person was killed. 39-year-old Joseph Grier was taken into custody. Police say he's a convicted felon and has been arrested 19 times previously. President Biden says he accepts the outcome of his son Hunter Biden's conviction on gun charges. Hunter Biden illegally bought and possessed a gun while addicted to drugs in 2018. Last night, Biden talking gun control.
Into the lawsuit, and you're determined to not focus on your anger, but on what you can do. Look, folks, you've helped power a movement that is turning this cause into reality, especially young people who demanded our nation do better to protect us all, who protested, who organized, who voted.
All right.
I hope Hunter appeals this, and
Yes.
it's his son that
Yes.
does a Second Amendment challenge to that federal
Oh, that'd
law.
be great, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be special?
Then,
Let's see.
what do you think? Do you think Joe would be more angry that his kid was addicted to drugs, or that his kid went after and tried to support the Second Amendment?
I
What
would
gets
say the
Joe more
latter.
angry? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. All right. The grandson of President Jimmy Carter says he's no longer awake every day in hospice care. In a recent interview with Southern Living magazine, Jason Carter said his grandfather is experiencing the world as best he can. Carter is nearing his 16th month in hospice care. The Republican-led House is expected to vote today to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress. This comes after the Justice Department refused to turn over audio recordings of President Biden's interview with the special counsel investigating his handling of classified documents. The White House blocked the release of the audio by invoking executive privilege. 8 men with possible ties to ISIS are arrested after crossing the southern border into the United States. ICE agents arrested the men over the weekend in New York, Los Angeles, and Philadelphia. Sources said on Tuesday that the 8 suspects had been on the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force radar. Pete Peterson from Pepperdine University on with Jeff and Bill last hour. The increase in minimum wage to $20 in California really ends up being no wage. It is affecting other businesses.
With any kind of law like this, it's not just those chain stores, it's all the other smaller competitors for wage earners that are going to be impacted by this. Many school districts are now wondering if they're going to be able to match this $20 minimum wage, which of course is going to drive up costs of education and then drive up taxes again.
Yes, sir. Simple economics. Rockies over the Twins, 5-4 last night. Getaway day today. NBA Finals continue tonight in Dallas as the Celtics try to go up 3 games to none. 75 in Parker, 73 in Golden, 77 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue on Wednesday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. Comfortably warm in the 80s today. Sunny to partly sunny. There won't be a lot of them, but there'll be a few widely scattered thunderstorms this afternoon and evening. A low tonight near 60. Getting a little on the hot side. Wednesday and Thursday, making the low to mid-90s for both days. Lows at night, low to mid-60s. Only isolated thunderstorms. A better chance for thunderstorms, not as hot, back to the 80s Friday and Saturday. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. I'm going to go to the phone lines in just a second. I want to talk to you about Empower Home and Gay Ribble. We had Gay in the studio earlier this week. Gosh, 2 days ago. She is such a delightful person. She's very sweet. That's number one reason you want to work with her, right? Is if you're selling your home, that incredibly stressful work of selling your home, you want somebody that you can work with well. And that's Gay Ribble. Number two, she shares our values. She believes in the station. She believes in what we're doing here. She's happy to support it. She gives back to orphans in the state of Colorado because she was an orphan herself at one point, and she wants to help those kids find their forever homes. Number three, most importantly, she is a titan when it comes to selling your home. She gets her clients an average of $30,000 more, and she sells the house 1.5 times faster than everybody else because she has over 14,700 pre-approved buyers ready to go. Look, guys, I know you got friends and family that are real estate agents. You always feel like you have that pressure to go to them. Go with the pros because this is a business deal. You need to get the most money for your family that you can. That's why you need to hire Gay Ribble. Listen to this unbeatable offer. Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team will sell your house for 100% of the asking price, or Gay will pay you the difference. It's an offer you simply cannot refuse. Get 100% of your asking price guaranteed with Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Give them a call today, 833-301-SOLD. That's 833-301-SOLD, or go to gayhasthebuyers.com. That's GAYE hasthebuyers.com. All right, we're talking this minimum wage law passed in California. It's cost the fast food restaurants 10,000 jobs that had to be eliminated because it's driving up the cost. Let's go to the phone line. Sean Lakewood, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
Thank you. Pete did a great job. Thomas Sowell is kind of the godfather of this whole minimum wage issue. Every time that goes up, you're not just raising the lowest wage earners. Every union contract has a wage escalation clause, so it jacks up the cost of every level above that, including people with 20 and 30 years experience, automatically, without any negotiations or anything else. Especially with public service employees, it jacks those prices up. But the most important thing is, every time this happens, the opportunities for that first-time wage earner, or for somebody who wants to work in a seasonal area, or that wants a part-time job, that would happily take something less than what that minimum wage is, it's eliminated because there's no option to do that. The people that are hurt the worst are the youngest employees, and even hurt worse are those Black and brown employees, the young men and young women that are looking for that first ladder on the wage ladder. It just puts the ladder higher and higher, and they can't
Sean,
reach
couldn't we just change the rules then? Couldn't we just say if you are under the age of 18, no minimum wage, under the age of 21, no minimum wage, if you have less than 3 years experience, no minimum wage, less than 5 years experience, no minimum wage, because it seems to be that the pain point for you is the age and getting those people the experience. Would it be acceptable for
Bill,
you
that's
then
a false
to
argument, and I'll tell you why your argument is false.
Why don't we
the reason
accept
your
them?
argument is false is because you ignored all of those public employee, the private employee wage increases automatically, not just for the lowest level, but for every level, including those people making six figures. It automatically increases their amount by whatever that wage percentage increase is at the lowest level. You've completely ignored that whole argument.
No, it doesn't automatically. No, Sean, it doesn't. Sean, unless that is unless it is written into their contract, it doesn't automatically increase them.
And all of those union processes include automatic escalation. That's
yes,
what
they
you
do.
haven't addressed.
No, yes, they do. But the number of wage earners across the country is minuscule opposed to those that aren't. So you're picking out a small group on purpose because it makes your point. Don't do that.
You're making an argument that ignores the biggest impact. Wages should reflect how much value do they add to what's going on. If I'm selling any kind of project or providing any service, if the amount I have to pay to meet certain demands exceeds the amount I can get back, or the amount that I can make that work with, especially small business. This impacts small businesses way more than it does all these major chains who can spread it over different areas. And that's it. It just kills businesses. Look at what's going on here in Denver. Here in Denver, we have a higher minimum wage than any place else. Restaurants are shutting down and moving out of Denver and moving across the borders where they can work.
Sean, what happened in Seattle in 2014 when they raised the minimum wage for restaurant workers to $15? What happened? How many restaurants do you have currently?
You lost the lowest levers. It eliminated jobs.
How many
People
restaurants?
Are moving to automation. You're ignoring all of those
How many
issues.
restaurants? Are the restaurants gone in Seattle? Can you not go out to eat? Were there no restaurants that pulled in and got those spaces? Did the market not adjust?
I don't know. It eliminated the ability for new restaurants to start.
No, Sean, not at all. There are lots of new restaurants that have started over the past decade in Seattle. Tons of them.
But
despite the
to
minimum
Sean's
wage.
point in Denver, and I talked to a business owner, a very kind of famous restaurant owner here in Colorado. They said that traditionally restaurants would have a 10% profit margin year over year. So that's, you went to the business. That's, if you did it right, that's what you could expect. After COVID, it dropped down to 3 or 4%. Now, with both inflation and minimum wage laws, particularly in Denver, it's now, to Sean's point, it's now negative. You're actually going to lose money if you start a restaurant. That's why 184 businesses and restaurants have left Denver, because they just can't afford to do business.
Well, our friends at Westwood, outline new restaurant openings and closing every week. That happens all the time. So the idea that new restaurants can't open in Denver because the economic conditions are disproven based on a weekly article in Westword.
I think they're leaving.
No, but I'm telling you, some are opening and some are closing. I'm not disagreeing with the entire premise. I'm saying, yes, there are some that are closing based on the economic conditions. There are also some that are opening. Just like now, if in California you had an idea for a fish taco place, you've got a wonderful opportunity because the biggest player in that market just closed. That's an opportunity for an entrepreneur. I mean, and Sean, you know that. You know that's how this works.
Bill, I know as an economist and with a public policy background, you're ignoring the biggest impact. Every time we have government regulation step in, it adversely impacts the capital market. It adversely impacts new businesses. It adversely impacts the very beginning workers we have. And we're not just talking about 16-year-olds. We're talking about anybody who doesn't have adequate skills to make their
Sean, then you ignored my argument earlier.
Exempt them. Make a profit for whatever business they're working in.
Exempt them. Exempt them. If that's your pain point, exempt them. Yes, you can, Sean. Yes, you can. You absolutely could if you wanted to. I have somebody who doesn't
fall within your limited under 18 age group, right? I have limited skills. In fact, I have no skills. I have to go through the entire training process. It's not keyed to my age. It's keyed to my skill and the value I can add to any process. If I don't add $20 worth of value, or I have to add more than that because there are all the other inputs. If I can't add more than the value of hiring me, I don't get hired. And that applies across the wage spectrum, across the age spectrum, across the businesses.
Yeah, but you know, Sean, based on your Sean, hang on a sec. Sean, hold on. Wait, Sean, stop right there. You know, though, also being an economist, you know that if that employee adds more than that $20 value, the business is not out of the goodness of their heart going to pay them more. The employee doesn't have that leverage.
They will pay what the value that employee
No, they
gives
won't.
them.
No, they won't. No, they won't.
And here's the reason why. I'm looking at In-N-Out Burgers. In-N-Out Burgers here in Lakewood pays more than the minimum wage, right?
Yep.
Why? Because we have a shortage of labor, because they have decided under their process they can afford to pay more. They want the value added, so they pay more than Burger King or the other places. And guess what? They get the best employees. They get those who add the most value. Okay? So this whole issue that government knows best is absolutely ridiculous.
I never argue that government knows best.
All they do is create problems, drive jobs out of the market, and tremendously impact small businesses. You want to give me a 2015 example in Seattle? If I look at the entire wage scale and I look at the whole process over Seattle over the last 20 years, I'm going to find every time they did a wage increase, it eliminated jobs. Automation is replacing those lower jobs. Our younger people have fewer options and fewer abilities to learn how to do things right.
The problem with that, Sean, is that automation has been an answer for decades, regardless of where the minimum wage is. McDonald's has been exploring automated kiosks for over 18 years. They've tested it 10 years ago, and that had nothing to do with a rise in the minimum wage. That businesses are always going to be looking at trying to increase productivity based on technology. That's why here we run 90% of the stuff off of computers, and we don't do it off of tape anymore because of advancements in technology and making it more efficient. Instead of having to pay somebody for several hours to take actual commercials that come down in an email and then load them one by one into the system, technology absorbs it. That person doesn't have a job anymore. But that's what technology does. Businesses are always trying to use technology to eliminate jobs. You're using this as a red herring, man.
It's not a red herring. What I'll tell you is, once again, skills determine what the value of the worker is and what wage should be paid them. If I'm a low-skilled person in Denver, I now have lower opportunity. And if they jack up the rate in $20 in Denver, all of those lower-skilled individuals that can't add as much value as others, I don't care what age or what particular strata they fall into, they're going to have less opportunity in Denver. They're going to have to move out of Denver. They're not going to be able to find a job in Denver because government drove them out of the marketplace.
Or they're driven to the marketplace because there are people in fast food that are moving from here to California. And it's because the government that drew them into that market based on the wages. So it does work both ways, my friend.
Sean, I really appreciate the call. I'm with Sean on a lot of that. I think he provided a good analysis, and Sean was very patient. Thanks so much for being on the program.
He calls again. That was really fun. That was really
smart
good.
Guy.
Really smart.
I want to talk to you about my friends at Dan Caplis and Dan Caplis Law. I've known Dan for decades, back when I first moved back and got to work here. Dan is pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. He's one of the nicest guys out there. He's centered in his values, strong in his faith. He's the former seminarian. He's the son of a police officer. He has dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes, okay? So he's with you on the values. Then when you get into the courtroom, he's a titan. He is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Caplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. He accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, give him a call, 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS law.com. Let's go to Gary, Denver. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Morning.
Oh, hi, great show. As we all learned, the invisible hand, as per Adam Smith, price is based on supply and demand. That's what dictates what a price is. And certainly when you impose a minimum wage, that causes distortions that have effects that ripple through the economy. So if it was up to me, I would completely eliminate the minimum wage and just let market forces determine price and how labor is used, and labor is a function of supply and demand as well. But because we have politicians who are basically passing legislation to buy votes, which is what's happening in California and is also happening by Donald Trump, who most recently indicated that he would eliminate taxes on tips, which he can't do because that would require a change in the tax code. That'll also have its impacts primarily on the debt. So I guess in my mind, one thing you didn't mention, you were talking about 10,000 jobs lost in California. To really have an opinion on the effect that might have, you need to know more information. Like, were those 10,000 jobs part-time jobs? I mean, if they were part-time jobs, it may only be 5,000 full-time jobs, and which for a state in California, even 10,000 doesn't sound overwhelming. And also, businesses have a choice. If they have to increase the minimum wage, if they become more productive and can get the same work done with fewer employees, the net effect to that business is zero. And the displaced workers, unemployment's at an all-time low. I mean, certainly a lot lower than when Trump was in office. There's plenty of jobs, and they'll find jobs. So I guess overall, I disagree with imposing a minimum wage, but I think the distortion in our economy today, which is very strong, by the way, will be minimal.
What do you think about the fact that as a result of this distortion, as you rightly called it,
yeah, I agree,
results in menu prices going up? A big part of that article is basically these costs don't just get absorbed by the company, they pass it on to their customers. And so it becomes a de facto tax upon consumers who are now paying between 8 and 10% more for their food in California.
Well, I'd like to see the data that supports price increases. I think part of that is businesses taking advantage of the circumstance, and it goes to their bottom line, which increases their dividends to their stockholders. And, you know, the stock market's at an all-time high because of these increased earnings. And also, you know, like I said, if they make adjustments and become more productive, they don't need to increase prices. And if you've ever heard of the concept of elasticity of demand, that's the percentage increase in prices as versus the increase in costs. In the food industry, the elasticity of demand is very low. In other words, price increases doesn't change the demand for food. It has to do with whether there are substitutes and, you know, whether or not
competition, things like that. Yeah,
exactly. So one last thing I'm going to mention, I talked to, or actually I read an article in Westward, and more than the increase in costs, which, you know, Denver has a minimum wage as well. In Denver, what's happening is businesses, and there was an article about a restaurant, and his property taxes went up something like 1,000%. And here's the reason why that I didn't understand that you might appreciate. They value businesses like restaurants based on the best use concept.
Oh,
so
no
if
way.
If you have a one-story restaurant in downtown Denver, this was the example, they value the property as if you could build an 18-story high-rise on it. And what's the value of the 18-story high-rise? And that's the valuation base.
Oh my! And now again, does that sound like something that the government weaselly would do? Absolutely, it would be like them coming to your home, Gary, my home, Jeff's home, listeners'
Could
home.
be a lot bigger.
Yeah, and saying, I know you only got 3 bedrooms here, but this thing, if you went up, you got 4 stories. This thing would be worth $1 million, and then charge you. That is ridiculous, man. I didn't know that. That is ridiculous.
That was the most eye-opening thing related to businesses and specifically restaurants that was driving them out of business. 1,000% increase in property taxes is overwhelming compared to a small increase in the minimum wage.
Yeah, and I agree with you on the idea of wage distortion, that when the government raises it in this manner, that it does distort the market. It hurts it. And I think Gavin Newsom's problem is he raised it too quickly. It wasn't done incrementally over the course of, some small steps. There was a huge jump, and anytime there's a huge jump in any of the input costs, there's going to be negative consequences. Absolutely. And I appreciate, some of the callers have been saying, and our previous guest Pete was saying about the constraints on the restaurants. But you have people like, McDonald's saying, oh, because of these extra minimum wages, we are going to have to move to automation. We're going to have to fire people, ignoring the fact that they made over $14 billion in net profit last year. $14 billion. That doesn't sound like a company that is struggling with labor costs, especially when they saw worldwide growth around 9%. And I think statewide growth was 3 to 4%. That's not a company that is struggling in any way, shape, or form.
Why wouldn't you just allow McDonald's and Burger King and the rest of them to just compete for high quality employees, as opposed to saying we're going to because you made a profit, right? And the the shareholders made $14 billion or whatever it is the company did. Me, Gavin Newsom, Jared Polis, Mike Johnston are going to tell you what you need to pay your employees. Why wouldn't you just allow Burger King to go, you know what, we're going to take a $12 billion profit and we're going to pay $5 more an hour to get the better employees so that our customers have a better experience, so that we make more money because they're going to want to come spend to us.
Because
why is it right for those guys to step in? And
no, here's the reason why, and I'll explain it to you. What is the number one goal of a CEO in any one of those large corporations?
Make as much money as they can.
No, that's not at all. What is the actual goal?
Of him personally?
No. The CEO. If you're put in as a CEO,
right.
It's not, your goal isn't to make the most money. Your goal is to maximize shareholder value.
Okay.
That's
sure.
it. So and that's where I have to start with.
Yeah.
We're maximizing shareholder value.
Yes.
If I take my 14 billion and I carve some of that out and I give my workers more money, I'm lowering the dividend for shareholders. I'm no longer fulfilling my number one priority.
But you could actually be making the company better so that you're going to generate more profit later.
But that doesn't matter.
Why would that matter? Why wouldn't making more profit matter?
Hang on a sec, though, because the CEO keeps their job based on maximizing dividend and shareholder stock price and purchases. That's why you had someone like, we talked about it before. That's why Bed Bath & Beyond had $11 billion in the bank, and they spent it on stock buybacks and then went bankrupt because they didn't pay off their $5 billion in their debts. They could have paid off $5 billion in debt and still getting $6 billion in stock buybacks. But because maximizing stockholder value and shareholder value and dividend is the number one goal of the CEO, he funneled all the cash.
Now they're gone.
Yeah, but the issue is the same thing with McDonald's. McDonald's can't make that choice to give everybody this giant wage without figuring out how to make it okay to the stockholders. Because as soon as you do that, you are diluting stockholder value and dividends, and you're not fulfilling your responsibility as CEO.
But the government's coming in and doing that anyways.
Well, the government's
forcing them to
I know, but hang on. But that's why the mechanism, and I disagree with, the government always forcing it, but that's outside the system. So the CEO can sit there and say, government did it. I'm sorry. The CEO is not responsible for the government hurting the maximization of their value. He's responsible for keeping it where it is, and to do that for what he has the purview over. And if the minimum wage goes up, he can't do anything about that, and he can throw up his hands and go, nothing I can do, guys. I got to pay them more. It's okay. But when he has the choice, his number one responsibility is to maximize shareholder value. And you want to know why you have companies that don't reinvest in facilities, why they don't reinvest in their people, why they don't go into more training, why they don't expand worker perks. It's because of that. That's the motivation.
To my original question, if that company does that, like Bed Bath & Beyond did, then why wouldn't you want the market itself to work it out? What you have literally had in California is Governor Gavin Newsom saying to every business, you have to pay your lowest skilled employee this certain amount of money. And the result has been 10,000 employees have lost their jobs in the state of California. What again? You don't like the fact that McDonald's is maximizing shareholder value? Don't work at McDonald's. You don't have to. Burger King invests in, I'm just using it as an example.
Sure.
Burger King decides it's going to invest in its employees, and they get higher quality employees, so you have a better experience for its customers. They have more revenue as a result of more people going over there. That's the free market working itself out naturally anyways.
But the employer, and maybe we'll ask Gary. Gary, if you're an employer, you're trying to get your labor cost where? How are you trying to balance that out, Gary? If you're trying to get your labor cost, are you trying to make sure your labor cost higher, lower? What are you trying to do with labor as you own that business?
Well, I'm focused more on my margin. The difference between what I could, so my labor costs, what I need to do with labor costs depends on what I can do with my revenue.
Yeah.
If I can increase prices and not lose customers, I may take that approach. Or I might, like Walmart recently released earnings and they kicked butt, and the way they did it was they reduced their costs.
Yeah. And that's part of it, is that you need to have labor, and your product inputs has to be at the lowest possible point in order so you can maximize profit. So the business has almost zero incentive to maximize labor in any way, shape, or form. They always have down pressure on labor.
They absolutely do, because there's a certain point where you're going to cut costs so much that the experience of the customer becomes so negative that they're not going to be spending money there anymore. So go ahead, Gary.
Jeff, that's a good point. Like certain industries, like say the luxury car industry, if they cut costs significantly by like letting go salesmen and the customer experience suffers, they're going to sell fewer cars, and it's going to hurt them. And that's primarily because the elasticity of demand for those kind of products, luxury cars, is very high.
Yeah.
In other words, if you raise prices, your demand's going to go down. So it's a little different than the food industry. But I think both of you have good points. And, overall, I'd say there are going to be distortions with minimum wage, and the effect on the economy is not as onerous as one might think.
Hey, thanks, Gary.
Gary, really appreciate it. Thanks so much for the call. That's great insight. Want to talk to you all about UltraCur. Look, there's plenty of curcumin products out there that are going to make you pay to try. Not UltraCur. UltraCur is a patented non-prescription natural capsule that works fast to address your joint pain, your workout soreness. It's a daily supplement you take to provide relief for you. And 50% of people will find relief within 48 hours, half of those within just 2 hours. But here's the deal. UltraCur believes so much in their product that it will help you. They're willing to give you a free 3-day trial of UltraCur. All you have to do is go to your Denver Metro Natural Grocers and ask for the health coach or the vitamin manager. UltraCur is fueled by a patented technology to give you the true edge to support your peak wellness, energy, and active lifestyle. If you tried everything, even other curcumin products, why not give yourself a free 3-day trial of UltraCur? Just have to head to the Natural Grocers, no strings attached. If you're wondering about the research, get the lowdown at getultranow.com. That's getultranow.com. All right, we'll continue with your calls and texts.
Jeff, I'm going to say this. Okay, as we go to break, I'm going to tell you, when we come back from break, I think I have an argument that you, as a rocked-ribbed conservative, could get behind to support not only a higher minimum wage, but a living wage. I think I can make the case.
Right.
I'm setting myself out there. Let's see if I can prove it. Let's go.
I look forward to hearing that. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm not sure I can do this.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. Troops from Russia and Belarus have started the second stage of military drills to practice the deployment of tactical nuclear weapons. The Allies have blamed threats from Western powers for making the drills necessary, accusing the United States and its European allies of pushing the world to the brink of nuclear confrontation by providing weapons to Ukraine. A judge has struck down as unconstitutional a 2023 Florida law that blocked gender-affirming care for transgender minors and adults. Nikki Stanzioni has more from New York.
A federal judge struck down a 2023 Florida law that blocked gender-affirming care for transgender minors and severely restricted such treatment for adults, calling it unconstitutional. Senior Judge Robert Hinkle ruled the state went too far when it barred transgender minors from being prescribed puberty blockers and hormonal treatments with their parents' permission. He also stopped the state from requiring transgender adults to only receive treatment from a doctor and not a registered nurse or other qualified medical practitioners. He also barred a ban on online treatment for transgender adults. Governor Ron DeSantis' office blasted the decision, calling it erroneous, and vowed to appeal.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. All right, Billy, lay it on me. What do you got? What's the brilliant argument
All right,
to
here we go.
embrace the living wage?
Yeah, so we got to make sure. Can I convince Jeff that we actually need a living wage? Can I convince the rock rib conservative that a living wage is actually something necessary? Okay, deep breath, deep breath, deep breath. Okay. Find a happy place, find a happy place. All right, here we go, sir. Now, you have been talking about, and we have as well, the free services that we've been providing for the illegal immigrants, the things that they are getting, how the taxpayer is having to pick up the bill for their medical care, their education.
$340 million in the city of Denver.
Now, let's say that, I don't know, maybe a large employer, say a Walmart, caps people's hours at 32 and pays what we would not call necessarily a living wage here in Denver. For those people, and again, we can talk about, and that's why I say if we want to exempt the teenagers, but for those people, who picks up the tab when they have to go to the store and buy groceries? Who picks up the tab when they have to go to the doctor? Who picks up the tab? Yeah. So that's the thing. If you're unhappy with the amount of services that we want, if you want to lower the social services bill that we have for the government, then maybe what we do is ask the businesses to pick up their fair share of the budget and pay their workers where they can afford to live. I have a hard time, again, I'm not totally convinced, but I have a hard time arguing for a business that says, I can pay my employees less than what they can actually feed themselves on because you, Jeff, and me and the listener are going to pick up that excess. We will make sure that they're okay.
Yeah, right.
The business doesn't have to.
So when they pass on the cost to us, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So the business passing on the cost to us,
and not doing
more
it based
expensive
on,
for us.
Well, and not necessarily more expensive, but the issue is the taxes. This is outside. I mean, we can decide if Walmart raises prices, we can go to Walmart. McDonald's raises prices, we can go to McDonald's. But whether or not you set foot in either McDonald's or Walmart, if they're not paying their workers a wage in which they can feed themselves and house themselves, you and I are picking up that tab regardless of if we ever shop there.
Yeah,
our choice
because
is taken away
the
from
social
us.
services are being provided.
Yeah.
So you're proposing a trade, it sounds like.
Yes, sir. We're talking like the NFL.
Lower taxes.
Yeah.
Higher living wage.
Yeah.
I'd be open to that.
Really? Holy crap.
I would be open to that because to me, the enemy is never the employee. But sometimes it could be corporations. To me, the enemy is the government. And if you starve the beast, which means they get less.
See, that's the thing is, and I think that's the argument. I think that's where a lot of the sales, and again, I'm just going to share with the listener. I can't believe that we just did that. I can't believe it. He's like, maybe that's a good idea, Bill. I cannot believe that. Again, I don't think it's perfect. I don't think it's great, but thank you so much. Yeah.
I want to talk to you all about advanced hair restoration. You know, the Jeff and Bill Show is named the top talk radio show in Denver by Westward. Well, our friends at Advanced Hair Restoration were named the top hair restoration company by Westward. Same article. Yes, way to rock it, Advanced Hair Restoration. Summer is a time to feel and look your best, but I'm not talking about your abs, your tan. Guys, I'm talking about your hair. Restore that bald spot, reverse your receding hairline, and add volume to thinning during Advanced Hair's once yearly summer savings event. Advanced Hair's simple one-day treatment begins to regrow your own natural hair the very next day, and they guarantee your new hair will grow. There is absolutely no one I trust more than Dr. Tanya Pauls and her team at Advanced Hair. Take advantage of your flexible summer calendar and get the most hair for your dollar. Advanced Hair Summer Sales Event is on for a limited time, so get the details and schedule your free consultation today. Give them a call, 720-459-HAIR. One-day treatment, life-changing results with Advanced Hair. Your new hair is guaranteed to grow. 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. Check out the incredible before and afters and take advantage of their best offer ever. 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. Let's go to Aaron, Denver. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Well, yeah, good morning there, gentlemen. Both arguments are just really good. And the thing is, though, we need people like you in the local and state government because both of you guys are reasonable. And the thing is, I'm thinking, what if California was a mixture of conservatives and Republicans? But of course, currently California has a loony left governor. California has a loony left state legislature, and if there's if there's any so-called Republicans in the state government in the California, they're very few and far. I mean, they're just very few of them, and that's the problem right there. That there's no Republicans.
Yeah, Aaron, I can't figure this out. Maybe you can.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it where you have total Democrat control? Is it all way more expensive, and the quality of the city is worse?
It's gone to hell. And exactly the thing is, I don't want that happening in my beautiful state of Denver, Colorado.
Yeah.
I don't want that happening here. What you see in California is it's an S-hole. So, and I don't want that. But the thing is, though, if we had people like you, Jeff, and Bill that think that way and can come to find some middle ground, some compromise. What you have in California, there's no compromise. So
that's right. That's right. There is no compromise.
Yeah.
Aaron, you're exactly right.
And Aaron, you know what I want to say? I think that for me, some of the pain point and frustration that I have, and I think you're right about many things that you're saying, what Jeff is saying, especially about when you get one party liberal dominance inside of an urban area, things can go sideways. And for me, this is why, and maybe for you too, why I'm so upset and frustrated with the Colorado GOP, because they need to be the guardrails. We need them to be a functioning pushback against the liberal tendencies that we have right now. We can't let the liberals in our state legislature get a supermajority. We need to have that checks and balances, because we know the liberals want to do things like decriminalize fentanyl. They want to give us safe injection sites. They want to do all these things. And that's where I have a frustration, because, and again, the conservatives in California also have done a really, really bad job. But thankfully, Gavin Newsom is giving them some ammunition, as our guest Pete from Pepperdine University said last hour, that there are some shifts in some other communities because of what Newsom has done based on overreach. So, man, this is it. I think that we need to be as mad as we are at the Democrats, as mad as that at the Republicans here in the state, because they're not providing enough of a pushback. Not because they're not meaning to. They don't have the numbers. Get more people elected, man.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, Bill, and that's the problem. They're not pushing back, and the thing is, when you got a two-party system, I would say that if California was a conservative legislation and they were all Republicans, you had a conservative governor, and they go cuckoo for Cocoa Pops. Well, you got to have that reasonable, common sense Democrat in it and say, hey, slow down. Pump brakes. So I would say that on both sides. But that's why you got to have that middle ground where you got a D or R labeled on your forehead to bring some common sense, bring some compromise, and bring some balance. What you have in California, it's gone Thelma and Louise off the cliff. And that's why you got the problems you have in California.
That is a great reference, Aaron. I appreciate that. Have a great day. And again, I do give a lot of respect to the Mighty 19. They were down at our state legislature. They just did not have enough people to get what they needed to accomplish. They did a lot of things to get involved in conversations, but even when we talk about some of that budget deal and the property tax deal, they didn't have enough people on their side to get the deal that was better for you and I, the average property owner. They got what they could, even though it was imperfect, and that's unfortunate based on numbers. Get more numbers, get more leverage.
By the way, great call, Aaron. Thank you so much. Want to talk to you all about Dr. Mike and Rocky Mountain Dental. Believe me, with all the work I've had done to my teeth, I know a good dentist, and Dr. Mike at Rocky Mountain Dental Group is a great dentist. He helps people like you and me feel and look amazing by providing the best dental care available. See for yourself all the 5-star reviews at RockyMountainDentalGroup.com. Here's one. I've been going there for over 20 years. Dr. Mike and his entire staff are outstanding. I like the fact the same person always cleans my teeth. If you need an awesome dentist, Dr. Mike is your guy. Your gums are receding. If your gums are receding, it's critical to address this issue promptly. Dr. Mike is a top-tier expert in the Chow pinhole surgical technique. This method requires no cutting, no sutures, and virtually no downtime. The procedure involves just making a small hole in the tissue and gently repositioning the gums. Schedule a free consultation with Dr. Mike and discover the benefits of this revolutionary procedure. Call 303-233-1335 or visit RockyMountainDentalGroup.com. That's 303-233-1335, RockyMountainDentalGroup.com to book your free consultation today. All right, we'll continue. Jay, you're up next. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
There's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
Oh, he's not talking about us.
I should. I was texting with him the other day. 12 years Turning Point's been around.
Tell him he needs to repeat that. Give him a shout out. Hey, you're listening to Jeff and Bill. Charlie Kirk coming in next.
What did he say?
He just promoted. Love. I mean,
John,
like,
come on.
we're texting with him. A little love.
Shout out to Mike. Denver, you're on the Jeff and Bill show. Good morning, Jay.
Good morning. Great conversation about the economy. I agree with both of you and the economist that was on. I've been writing paychecks since 1995 and came from California because I didn't see that as a good place to start a business, and Colorado was. It was a heyday. It was Western. It was open without regulation. But what we used to do with our new employees since 95, pay $21 an hour, 40 hours a week. You work 4 tens mandatory, Monday through Thursday. If you choose to work Friday, you can make another $168 at $21 an hour so that you can get that additional funds for family fun, vacation, whatever. And when we sold the company not long ago, our youngest employee, our newest employee, was with us for 21 years.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we went to a lot of people. They walked away. It's like water. They just kind of seeks its own level. But I think that the minimum wage for where I work at Burger King at 16, if I was making 25 an hour or 20 an hour at Burger King, I'm for another job. Yeah. That's the problem, in my opinion.
So great show. You broke up just there towards the end. You said if you were making a high minimum wage at Burger King, you would not have looked at it for another job.
Absolutely. I quit Burger King right away, and I went to work for a Chevrolet dealer, parking cars, made more money. And by the way, they got my first 302 Mustang for $200 because car dealers get great deals on cars.
Yeah, they do. Hey, Jay, thanks for the call. I think that's a good point, and something that I kind of ignored and we hadn't talked about is that the incentive to get out of that first wage job. And that's something that honestly I didn't consider when we were talking this morning. It's a really good incentive because it shouldn't be a long-term goal to be employed there. It's a good point.
And you got to have those jobs that are willing to take a 15-year-old like we have in our family.
Yeah.
With zero experience, zero skills, and give them some place to start. But to Jay's point, to your point as well, that's not where you plan to be. But it's a good learning experience. I think everybody should work in food service in some time of their life.
You really, really should, because one, you'll be a better customer. You won't be an asshat when you're in there. And you'll understand some of the things that go on. And there's something about food service, waiting tables, or being a bartender working at a bar where you see the best and the worst of people. It is a great person study. Everybody should be mandated to do that.
Gives you insight. Well, Charlie Kirk is up next. It's been a great show. If you missed any of it, go to 710KNUS.com. You can download the podcast there. We covered a lot of issues today. Thank you to everybody that participated. You've been listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. Speaking of wages, we're going to ask for a raise.